Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 155. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my handsome son, Chris Skyrim and Raygun. Chris, your shirt cannot possibly be an accident. Are you trying to tell the audience something?
No.
Feel bad, perhaps?
No, it was totally an accident. I just, I was like, oh yeah, I have this shirt. I haven't worn it in a while. I actively, like, now that we do video, right, I think, like, okay, I can't wear the same exact shirt that I wore last time.
Right.
And I'm at, like, the end of at the beginning of a new wash cycle, and this is the last thing, so I was like, all right, well,
that's a nice shirt. And Skyrim is on PlayStation.
Yeah, it is.
Just teasing, of course. Welcome, Chris. Hope you're doing well. Also joined, as always, by executive producer of Last Stand Media, my other son, Dustin Furman. Now, I assume your shirt is certainly not a coincidence, and I just wanted to know if you had anything that you wanted to get off your chest.
Oh, no, I mean, I just, I pick out a shirt and, oh, what's that? Oh, a Cuphead shirt. Wow, amazing. Yeah. Just a fantastic game that I've beaten multiple times. That's just one of the best. I enjoy it. Sometimes I just play it for fun.
Did you beat it multiple times?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Like did you beat it on expert or whatever?
No, I'm not that crazy.
Yeah, that seems hard.
The expert mode or whatever. Dude, the platinum too is not easy. I don't think I can do that.
I heard it's somewhat of a compromised platinum. I was looking into it the other day when we were teasing back and forth about Returnal and Cuphead, which is of course the joke we're referring to, and I just went and looked because I was like, the Cuphead platinum must be incredibly rare, below 1%, but it's actually like 1.5%. And then I was reading this controversy around it about how there is a break where if you can find someone to play co-op with you locally that has the platinum trophy, it'll pop the trophies for you as you play and beat all the different bosses. And so Dang. Like it's a little bit, so it's hard to, you'd have to know someone in your real life basically that has it. But I think I own it. I bought it on Switch. I'll have to own it buy it on PS4, maybe play it again, see what I can do. But, I'm not happy about it.
Okay.
I said, because I basically walked into this.
Yeah.
I'm not very foolish usually. I mean, I make foolish mistakes every once in a while, but I opened myself up for that. It was ill-timed and ill-considered. So that's it. I
don't have anything to say. You got to fucking prove yourself at this point. That's the thing. You did walk into this. You walked into it.
Yeah.
You created a game that I didn't even know I was playing.
That's fair.
And now I'm bringing the heat.
That's a fair point. All right. So this is Sacred Symbols, our weekly PlayStation podcast. We put it up each and every week. You can get it 3 days early and ad-free on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Like more than 12,000 of you support us over there. Thank you so much for that. Exclusive access to Sacred Symbols Plus, our weekly Patreon-only episode of the show. That's always like a review discussion, spoiler casts, interviews, mailbags, etc. Beginning in July, we're going to start rolling 2 of those for all patrons over there, regardless of your level. So thank you for that. Last week, Sacred Symbols Plus was an analysis, a pretty good analysis, I think, of Xbox at E3 from our perspective, and we had fun with that. Next week will be Sacred Symbols Cross Defining Duke, and we'll have more to say about that. That's basically going to be a sub-series of scant episodes under Sacred Symbols Plus that we're going to begin doing. I know a lot of people want that to happen, and I make dreams come true. Yeah. So I'm happy to do that for you. Let's see here. Patreon merch, laststandmedia.shop, of course. And I have a note here that's not in the note in our shared notes. So a woman named Maggie P wrote in to me on Patreon. And I don't usually do things like this, but I thought it was cute that she did this. She has her boyfriend, Sean O'Malley, who's a fan of the show. His birthday's on June 23rd. So by the time this goes live, it'll be, a few days away. I just wanted to wish Sean O'Malley a happy birthday. And I thought it was really nice because Maggie basically reached out to me a few months ago, or not maybe even that. And she's like, will you do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just email me or message me at the time that week, and I'll say something. And that was kind of my test to see if it really mattered to her or not. And it did. And she came back. I let her go and she came back. So
that's nice. Yeah. That's wholesome.
So it is wholesome. So happy birthday to Sean. And she was like, I was kidding around with her because she was sending me like, and his favorite games are this, and this. And I'm like, Maggie, I'm not going to write him a biography here on the show. I'm not going to like get into his entire history here. But a very happy birthday to Sean O'Malley nonetheless from his girlfriend Maggie.
Yeah, and he gets a nice gift in the form of a baby-faced shaved Colin.
I know. What do you think of this? It's rare.
It's jarring. Yeah. I actually I forgot what your face looked like.
Yeah, me too.
Is there an occasion why you decided to
It's so hot. It's just so hot in the South, it's just, I feel so much freer like this. I mean, it'll come back. It'll grow back very quickly, but yeah. Because usually I just trim it down, but I just took the buzzer and just went all over my face and the same height as my hair. And no occasion, just wanted to do that. But I've been looking at myself because I've lost weight, right? So, and I've lost weight at the time that I've had a big beard covering my face. And so I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, I look like I have a pinhead now, even though, because I'm not used to looking at myself so skinnier like this.
Yeah.
Even though I actually have a big head. So it's it's a little jarring even for me, and I am me. So thank you for noticing.
Wow.
All right, guys, there's a few things to get through. Actually, there are 3 big items I want to talk about before we even get into what we're playing and we get into the news. But before we even do that, just want to cruise through a few things. Over at PlayStation Blog, they are taking beta signups for PlayStation 5 firmware. If you want to go check it out, they did the same thing for PS4. It's just a closed access thing where you get to kind of beta test and basically give them metrics and telemetry on how it works. So if you want to sign up for that and you have a PlayStation 5, you can do so. Also, I misspoke last week about the Final Fantasy Origin, the Stranger of Paradise demo. I said it was coming, I think, June 24th or something, but it's actually only going to be available until June 24th. And it was actually broken when it went up, but it works now. So if you want to play it, I don't want to play it, but did you play it, Dustin? Did you download it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think?
I probably need to be more fair to it and play the entire thing, but I really did not found myself drawn to it. It felt like a worse version of Neo, and only
so it's hard,
with really
it's
annoying
hard?
Dudes. I don't know if it's hard. It was easier. It was just, there's some really... So one of the main things that I don't like about Neo is that it's so loot driven. And so every time I picked up a piece of gear, I have to press pause and go to the menu to see if it's better, because my brain just is needs to be, min-max my loadout. And this game suffers from the exact same thing. I hate that. But, and in addition, there was other aspects of it that I didn't like. And I'm not singling out just that thing, but who knows? It's just a demo. It's a beta, or whatever it is.
Are you going to check it out, Chris?
Probably not. If I'm ever going to play this game, I'm probably going to wait until people who know me will come to me and say hey, you know what? You'd really like this. And then maybe I'll jump into it. That's usually how I decide to play games that I otherwise wouldn't have, even tried. But this, I don't know. This is the Kill Chaos game, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if I can handle that, man. I don't know if I can handle that for that long. That whole trailer was just, every single line was, I've got to kill chaos. Where's chaos?
I was opining on Twitter that the only exciting thing about this game to me is the idea of it, like I said on last week's show, of the idea of going back, but also the potential of them doing more Final Fantasy Origin stories in the future. Yeah. But God only knows if they're going to even get through this one. This just seems to, this has a lot of controversy around it. I do wonder, to your point, Chris, and we'll talk about this in more detail later, if the rumor was that it was a PlayStation 5 exclusive. That rumor was spurious. It wasn't true at all. It's not a PlayStation 5 exclusive. I wonder what the commentary would be on it if it was better or worse. Because there is some PlayStation protection going on, of course, but also would it be stranger, pardon the pun, if it was only on PS5 when it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it doesn't look particularly next gen. The weirdest thing about it, though, to me is it's just this really Final Fantasy looking thing, and then there's this one character in an H&M button down shirt. It's just a very, I don't know if that's common in Final Fantasy. I'm not familiar enough with Final Fantasy to know, but I feel like every single Final Fantasy character I've seen doesn't look like an H&M mannequin, and that main guy does, and it's just very weird.
I'm wondering, because Nomura is attached to this. I don't know. He's not the character designer though? Is he some kind of visual designer? Because they look like Nomura designs, which is what makes it distinct slightly from Final Fantasy. It's this weird, pretty boy kind of anime, but I don't know.
I'm sure he has some input, right? Like he wouldn't. His name wouldn't be featured prominently in the trailer if he didn't like if he touched it.
I think I think it was like an idea of his, like it was conceived by him. But I would doubt, because of Kingdom Hearts continuation, that he would be involved deeper than that. I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see. We'll find out what happens with the game. It reminds me, like I said last week, it kind of reminds me of Type 0 or Type O, however you want to say it. And so we'll see how that all goes. The only other things I wanted to say before we kind of get into some more earnest conversations, Returnal has another patch out now as of the 11th, and this is apparently a pretty substantial patch that, amongst other things, fixes trophies retroactively, makes them playable again.
Thank you.
And so like trophies that may have been missed and didn't pop, and apparently really enhances the overlay stuff with the cards and the help and trophy counting and all that. So I have to turn it on. I haven't played in probably a week now. And then, Chris, for you, Doom Eternal comes to PS5 natively on June 29th. This was noted in the Xbox E3 press conference, and we kind of just went over it, that they were just talking about the Xbox versions of it, but that is happening for Doom Eternal on PS5 as well. And will you play it there?
Yeah, I might jump back. I might jump back into it. 120 frames on a console. Yeah, why not? Why not? The game's so good. I'll find any reason to play it again.
Also, Resident Evil Village, Capcom noted, is getting at least one expansion, although they've given us no new information. Dustin, I was wondering, what should the expansion be?
A VR mode.
VR? That'd be cool.
Well, that's probably a whole separate thing. I bet you, I'm wondering if that's a thing for launch on PlayStation VR 2 or whatever, but I don't know. Surely they're going to mine the well of the ladies of the castle, and they're going to do some... You're a whole different character. It's an episode that all takes place in an expanded version of that castle with everyone's favorite large lady.
Yeah, Lady D.
To put it polite, Lady D.
Lady Dimitrescu.
Dimitrescu. I never know how to say it.
Dimitrescu. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going on what they say in the game.
Yeah,
right.
I wouldn't have said it that way if they didn't say it that way, for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think the Resident Evil Village expansion should be? You want to see more of that lady and her breasts?
That would be my honest answer. I mean, I think that it would make the most sense. Honestly, like, of the main cast of characters, those were the most interesting people. Like, that castle was the most I mean, the fish person's weird and neat, and I thought Heisenberg was kind of like terrible, to be completely...
Yeah, I thought it was like reverse interesting. I thought they put the game in backwards almost.
Yeah,
it should have ended in the well, I don't want to spoil it too much.
Yeah, we'll get into it when we do the spoiler cast, but like, the order of that game is really weird, but I think they were really just great characters, and it was almost kind of a shame that they didn't last long enough. Like, I was like, oh man, I wish this would have gone a little bit longer, a little bit further, but I do think, in all likelihood, if they're going to make DLC, it is going to be in-house Dimitrescu. Like, it would just, and I don't know if they would do more of the dollhouse, because I feel like the whole point of that is that it's like small and like really intense, but those would be the two things that I would imagine Capcom wanting to mine for content, and I would imagine that House Dimitrescu is the most obvious answer.
Yeah, it was good news, in fact, that from that perspective, that they don't know. They said openly, we don't know what it is. So the feedback is obvious. Like we said during the cycle of getting the game out, it seemed like they were surprised by her popularity at all. Although I must admit, I'm a little perplexed by her popularity too. It's a funny meme when you're making fun of it, but she's pretty horrifying in the game. Like, she's not hot, in my opinion. She's like a shambling. She probably smells. Can you imagine what she smells like? It probably
smells.
I mean,
BO and that powdery perfume that old ladies wear.
Yeah, I used to love one of my grandma had that thing where you put it, and then it was like that really fluffy thing you'd put. And I used to play with that all the time. And it probably used to annoy the shit out of her because it was probably like really expensive. Like that foundation or whatever you'd pop.
Yeah.
Maybe I was having some gender confusion of my own when I was a child. Who knows? But Lady Dimitrescu, I agree. I think we'll see more of her. And yeah, I get real Beyond Two Souls vibes from Resident Evil Village, just in the sense that in a different order, the game would be much stronger. It's the same thing with Beyond Two Souls, which they were able to remedy in Beyond Two Souls in the PS4 version, which I thought was pretty cool. Although I did not play it. Couple more things. Stalker 2, which was one of the coolest games we saw at the Xbox conference. We knew that it was a timed exclusive, but boys, it will come to PlayStation 5 as soon as July next year. So it is only a 3-month exclusive window. Not too bad. Not too long of a wait. And the only other thing we have to touch on here, and here it is. Lockmort sent us the E3 predictions and the scoring for them. So, gentlemen, what I would like to do, if I might, is go through and score how we did. And we'll go from last place to first place. And Chris was last.
No, of course.
Dang it.
Chris said there would be a boost to PS Now, folding in the PS Plus, and announced on the PlayStation blog. So 3 possible components to earn scores on, nothing of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
News about factions announced during Summer Game Fest, but if Naughty Dog also announces a different new game. So I don't know what that last thing was.
Yeah.
News about factions and announced during the Summer Game Fest. Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But if Naughty Dog also announces a different new game. Oh, I see what you're saying. You did say that too. We'll see more of Forspoken at the Square Enix conference. We didn't. That was a surprise. That was a safe bet.
That was bizarre. We saw like a snippet of it, but nothing new. It was just like a quick shot of like what we'd seen previously, just to say like, hey, it's not dead. I was just like, okay, weird. That's like the coolest thing that they're working on, I think. But like, all right.
Ubisoft will butcher Splinter Cell. No new game, only MP related. Although there is an explanation. So he had Lockmore was very thoughtful and put a little field in case there was a note, like an asterisk. And he says, Chris tweeted he's looking forward to the Splinter Cell anime. So there's a little bit of a positive twist there, although the guess was wrong. And finally, you said Medieval 2 would get announced on the PlayStation blog, 2 parts. So 0 out of 5, Chris. I'm sorry to say.
Wow.
That's what optimism. That's what optimism gets you.
Horrible performance. I didn't do much better. I scored 0.75 out of 5. I said no first or second party stuff at all. Sony only recycling old information like a Ratchet trailer or DLC. Huge third party presence. But if there's a new Sony or first second party exclusive announcement, blah blah blah. Death Stranding and which is the director's cut, and Kenna Bridge of Spirits were shown. So out on that. And I did say that there is great potential on this teasing something else, but I was wrong because Death Stranding had a presence at the show. It's a second party game. I said, and this was a bold one, kind of foolhardy, but we're having fun. Deathloop gets shown during Bethesda. Ghostwire Tokyo also gets showing during Bethesda. Acknowledge that both are coming to PS5. None of that happened, obviously. By the way, I had some clarification on this. I don't know exactly how true this is, but it comes from a source, a reliable source. Ghostwire Tokyo is a timed exclusive. Deathloop is a straight up exclusive. Forever, as far as I understand. Now, if there's any other clarification on that, but as far as I understand from someone in the know, Deathloop is a forever exclusive for PlayStation 5. But Ghostwire isn't. So we'll see if how that turns out. And if that's true, then of course they wouldn't have talked about Deathloop there. Let's see, where else am I? All right, number 3. Here's where I get a little crazy with it. By saying exactly what we knew was going to happen because of a leak. We'll see more of Babylon's Fall. An immediate beta. Available on PS4 and or PS5. So I was right that we would see more Babylon's Fall, and I was right that it would be on PS4 and come to PS5 natively, but no immediate beta. That was a real shitty guess because that was all based on the leak from Steam. So I definitely just ran with that one. I would have otherwise scored no points. Number 4, Ubisoft will announce a new single-player Splinter Cell game. That didn't happen. I'm going to keep guessing that every year. And finally, a new Final Fantasy Tactics game gets announced for PS5. That didn't happen. That was complete wishful thinking. The victor is Dustin, 2 out of 5.
Wow.
Number 1, PlayStation's presence will be disappointing at Summer Game Fest. Uncharted 4 for PC, Ratchet trailer. He gives you no points because Death Stranding was revealed. And I do agree with this because the presence disappointing. I don't know that we would be very disappointed about that. That's something. That's more than I thought we were going to get. Here's where you score a lot of points here. Number 2, Elden Ring will be re-revealed. Release window, gameplay. And then you said it would also be at the Bandai Namco or Xbox event, which it wasn't. So 0.75 out of 1 point there. You get a full point because Final Fantasy celebrates previous titles with a re-release, basic remasters. But of course, they came to the wrong platforms, but you still were right. Then you said, and I thought this was a good bet, Ken Levine and Ghost Story Games revealed what they've been working on. That didn't happen. And the number 5, and I liked this one too, Persona 4 Golden port for PS4, Persona 3 Fez port as well. Neither of those things happened, but you still scored 2 out of 5. So again, Chris, goose egg. Chris, you got to do better next time. Me, 0.75 out of 5. I'm right there with you. Dustin, a stronger 2 out of 5 showing. In the days we used to do this at Podcast Beyond where we get really crazy with these bets, 2 out of 5 that's a good score.
Whoa.
So, yeah, that's a good score.
That's what I was going to say. It's a little bit, it's like, 2 out of 5. Saying that, it's like, it's, but you got to go crazy with it.
There's a curve. It's like I had this biology teacher in high school, Mr. Dinowitz. He was a really nice guy. And he used to explain that in college, he took these bio courses where the grade or the curve was so low that if you scored like a 20, you passed the test, like that kind of shit,
That's
crazy. So you passed with a 40.
Wow.
Very well done. Yeah.
Look at that.
I was always wondering about that though. I'm like, so you guys were getting like 18 on your chemistry labs and stuff like that, and like 22, and I'm like, no wonder shit's getting out of the fucking coronavirus labs. Jesus Christ. Can we get some people that are doing science?
Yeah, right.
Out there?
Good Lord.
No.
I should have I should have made a safe guess like Take-Two will have a Zoom call for 45 minutes to an hour as their E3 showing. But damn, if I had only had the foresight to know something so obvious.
Well, Chris, I think you bring up a good point because I was thinking about this yesterday that I was like, man, they really had a messaging problem. And I don't know if it was E3's fault or the publishers or both, that Take-Two thing. And then we all saw Bandai Namco presentation. And then it's like, oh, they're showing one game for 20 minutes, like not even 20 minutes. It's like,
oh, I didn't even watch it. I was just like, I just nothing.
I just don't understand. Like, let people know in advance. I don't know. You breed disappointment if you aren't upfront about what you're doing.
Yeah, I just don't know why. I don't know why Take-Two had a Zoom call and branded it an E3 keynote. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you're gonna do this, do it like in 3 months and not have it associated with it. Like, why the fuck would you do this? Everybody hates you now.
I totally agree. There's a lot of that going on. Well, we'll save it for the Blue Box conversation because, oh boy, if that's not what it seems to be, I feel really bad because we'll get into that in a little while. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Sacred Symbols listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/symbols. I say it constantly on my shows and have for years. It's really important to take care of yourself mentally. I work out every day and tend to my body's health, so why wouldn't I do the same for my mind? A great way to acquire the tools necessary to deal with the stress in your life or anxiety at work or insecurity in a relationship or just about anything else you can think of is therapy. There's no shame in talking to someone about what's troubling you. Quite the opposite, in fact. I can categorically say that making a positive decision for the betterment of your life is the surest sign of maturity. BetterHelp is a great option if you think therapy is right for you. It's customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's affordable and activates quickly, too. You'll both save money compared to in-person therapy, and you'll be in contact with your provider within 48 hours. Unthinkably quick compared to in-person fare. And of course, you can tailor make your experience, focus on what you want to focus on, get advice and feedback and all the rest on precisely what you need help with, and do so in the fashion that's most comfortable and effective for you. So if something's on your mind and you want to explore therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Go to betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS and get 10% off your first month of sessions. Take good care of yourselves, my friends. I've found so much help for myself by consulting with mental health professionals in my life, and I know you can discover the same outcome. So give BetterHelp a try at betterhelp.com/symbols. Get 10% off your first month of sessions and see what talking to someone who can truly help you is all about. I'm a bit of a Luddite, but even I know what a VPN is and how useful a good one can be. VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and the uses of one are legion. They can act as simply as an ad blocker or as complexly as a location spoofer. And my friends at NordVPN have a premium VPN offering that combines all of a virtual private network's positive traits into something affordable, privacy-oriented, and incredibly useful. So here's what I think our audience would be most interested in: streaming overseas content. As we all know, if you're, say, American like I am, I'm stuck using the American versions of Netflix and Hulu and HBO. I can't buy sports packages from other countries. I can't stream anime from Japan. I can't do anything like that, unless I use NordVPN, that is. By spoofing my location to be in, say, Japan, the network will have my computer reading like it's in Tokyo. Now I have access to Japanese services that are otherwise geo-banned. The possibilities are endless, and they can even sprout off into games, giving you access to, say, a PC games library from some other country where a title is available you couldn't otherwise play. And since NordVPN encrypts your traffic and has a strict no login policy, they won't even so much as collect any data from you, nonetheless share anything. With thousands of servers in 59 countries around the world, using NordVPN just for streaming and buying otherwise unavailable content more than pays for itself. And since you can have up to 6 simultaneous connections, you can run NordVPN on your PC, phone, and tablet, and so can your significant other, as an example. It works on Windows, macOS, iOS, and Android, and it's lightning fast too. So give it a try. Go to nordvpn.com/sacred. That's nordvpn.com/sacred to get a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus a bonus gift at a huge discount. You can also use the code SACRED, that's SACRED, at checkout. Again, stream from anywhere, buy foreign games, anime, and more, encrypt your data, and much more at nordvpn.com/sacred. That's nordvpn.com/sacred. Before we do, though, there are 3 stories that I want to talk about that I don't feel like are normal news stories, so I didn't write them out, but I think will be good for conversation.
Right.
And, well, I want to start with this conversation that I wanted to have about Scott Cawthorn, who is the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's. Are you guys familiar with him as a person at all? Because I don't even really know what Five Nights at Freddy's is. I only know it from when it appears at PlayStation events as like coming to something, PSVR or something, but I'm not even really sure what it is. I just know it's a very popular thing in the PC space. So, Dustin, did you want to say something?
Well, no, all I know about him, what makes him interesting to me is that, to my understanding, he made some like real basic, like a kid's game or something. And one of the reviews were talking about how they looked like bad animatronics, and he never like made any money or anything. And so he was like, well, screw it. I'm going to make a game about scary animatronics and go for it. And then Five Nights at Freddy's ended up being this like huge phenomenon. Like, dude, this dude's like, he has to have tens of millions of dollars. Like, it just is absolutely loaded. I mean, good for him. As much as the we'll say the culture, whatever, around Five Nights at Freddy's is so kid focused and like all the GameStop merch. I'm like, good for him. Like, he made something and clearly there was a market for it. So, but this news about him, Colin, I think this is frustrating.
Yeah. So, I want to allow people to, and I guess I'll do this to you again, Dustin, is to opt into this conversation, because I guess it is inherently political, and I don't want people want to avoid this kind of conversation. So we'll give you a way to skip that. Maybe just keep an eye on the screen, or maybe there'll be a voiceover of some sort. I don't know, but we'll do something. Dustin, you figure it out, so that people can skip over this. But the basic tenor of this story is that this man, Scott Cawthorn, who made Five Nights at Freddy's, is a Christian conservative game developer, pro-life, and it was dug up. He didn't do anything. It was dug up that he had made political donations to like Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell, the minority leader in the Senate now. So this all kind of came to a head where it was becoming like, well, he's anti-LGBT, whatever the acronym is now, and he's not to be trusted, and he's fomenting hate and all of this, and he was basically saying like, no, I'm not. I don't believe. I love LGBT whatever people and all of the rest. And anyway, he was run out, and he wrote a letter where he basically retired, and he's like, the series will continue. Someone else is going to do it. I'm just going to spend time with my family. Obviously, as Dustin said, he's financially secure for life, so he doesn't need to really do this anymore. I am just kind of this is just another disturbing thing for me. And Chris, I'm just wondering if you follow this and what you might make of it.
I don't know if I care that much about it. Like, because like, like the principle of it is like, yeah, why do people even care? It's just what people are doing with their money. Like, if I can, buy Disco Elysium knowing that the people behind it are just kind of like weirdos, and they got like a picture of Stalin up in their headquarters or whatever the hell they got. Is that what it was? Was it Stalin or like?
Yeah, it was. They had a portrait of Stalin in their office.
Yeah, like if I can buy that with no problem, I don't see why I would have a problem with Five Nights at Freddy's. But at the same time, it's like, dude, like you said, the dude's set for life. He doesn't. He's fine. Like, this is not going to do anything really to this dude. If it was like an indie developer, like if it was like, hey, I've been putting my savings together to build this thing, and then like people run him out of the industry just because he like donated to this or donated to this political cause, then I would be a little bit more up in arms about it. But I can't get mustered up about this, honestly.
What do you make of it, Dustin? Have you been following the story?
Yeah. So I have two main thoughts. I mean, first of all, people, if you don't like Scott's politics, then it's your right to speak out against it or decide to not give him money anymore. I think that what's unfortunate, and I don't know much about Scott Cawthorn, but like, this isn't a small minority of people, an extremely small minority of people of the millions and millions and players of his games. So he has the right to do whatever he wants, and I don't know what he's thinking, but it's unfortunate because I'm just kind of like, fuck them. Like, who cares? If they can say whatever they want, they can disagree, but it's like, are you actually losing sales? Is your next game going to tank because of this Kotaku article and the people on your subreddit, which, as Chris has notoriously, I don't know if it was on the show or off air, but we've said is anti-fandom, basically. Like, if you have a Reddit, then that's where the most outspoken people that don't like you are going to go. So in that sense, I'm like, dude, like, if he wants to retire and be with his kids and maybe that's the end of it, he's just kind of like, nah, this isn't worth it anymore. I mean, more power to him, but I just hope that he doesn't feel run out because of the minority. The second thing is that, Colin, you specifically linked this Kotaku article that Ian Walker wrote. I want to read just one line from this.
Please do.
So Cawthorn responded to the public backlash by reiterating his belief while also claiming to have love for the LGBTQ plus members of his fan base, despite supporting powerful people who have done everything they can to harm them. Everything. I don't know, guys. I mean, I don't want to get into the specifics about Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell's LGBTQ plus policies, but do you really believe they've done everything they can to harm them? I don't know. It's just like this type of reporting is like clearly so opinion and agenda driven. It's like he couldn't just like state the facts. It had to have this spin to it. Am I off base about that?
No. First of all, Ian Walker's an awful writer. He also wrote, and I'm not trying to pick on him as an individual, but I got a lot of questions about this guy because did you read the Final Fantasy origin story that I linked out that he wrote or whatever, where
yeah,
it's like, whoa, man. Like, he's talking about like how the character looks like a dude who, I don't know. It just honestly, it kind of just came off as being like, boy. This is the dude that this guy reminds me of a guy that fucked my sister when she was in college. I mean, that's the way it sounded. I was just like, whoa, Ian, this is a video game website. We don't need that kind of nonsense. But nonetheless, I don't think you're off base at all. Here's the thing. This line that's being drawn is something that no one can possibly, it can't stand up to scrutiny. I'm going to give you an example, okay? If you supported Barack Obama in 2008, you gave him money, and you voted for him in the primaries, and you voted for him in the general election, and yes, we can, and all of that. Barack Obama was explicitly, not implicitly, not something I didn't ask, but explicitly against gay marriage when he ran in 2008. And in fact, the only reason it was ever discussed in 2012, as people might recall, is because Joe Biden opened his mouth and like just said something that forced him to take a different position basically on it. But Barack Obama was a values Christian guy. with some pro-choice bona fides, but he was vehemently anti-gay marriage. Here's the thing I want to bring up, though, is that in 2008 in California, there was a thing called Proposition 8, which was for gay marriage. It failed, unfortunately. If you voted, I believe if you voted like yes, it failed, and it voted no for pass, whatever it was. I was against Prop 8 because I wanted gay people to be able to get married. Even as a registered Republican, I supported Ron Paul that year in the primary. But when push came to shove, when in 2008 November came, I voted for Barack Obama. And Barack Obama was against gay marriage, which stood in conflict with my very vote for gay marriage earlier in the year. Do you understand what I'm saying? This brings out this ignorance of a person's individual complexity, and how a person can believe certain things and not believe certain things, have an order of operations and what is and isn't important to them, and that not everything is a catastrophe. Saying something like Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell are trying to destroy LGBTQ rights. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Yeah.
And even if they, like you say, like, oh, it's the trans athlete bill, or it's like things with the Pentagon or whatever, there are people on the internet that are trying to act like this is just another political pushback. And someone even brought up, like, Colin, you were just talking about Mohammed bin Salman or whatever from Saudi Arabia buying SNK. And I'm like, are we really going to conflate Mitch McConnell and the Saudi theocratic dictatorship? If you're gay in Saudi Arabia or transgender in Saudi Arabia, it's illegal and you can be executed for it. So let's not conflate everything that's happening. Just like we can be opposed to the Communist Party in China, a murderous regime with fucking concentration camps full of workers, Muslim Uyghurs, as we know, working in factories, where to the point where there is basically slave labor happening there. They manipulate their markets. They don't have a free democracy. You can't use the internet in a free way. That's different than criticizing Trudeau or, you know, a parliamentary system in Europe, which is free.
Yeah. It's a sliding scale of severity based on where you are, though. It is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, if you're in the U.S., obviously it's better to be gay in the U.S. than it is to be gay in Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, I'm looking through like some of McConnell's voting history, and it's like, yeah, it is a little bizarre to be like, oh yeah, I support LGBT this, and then also like not even just support Mitch McConnell, but then like donate. The donation of money to me is always just bizarre to political figures. I just don't understand why anyone would do this, but especially if they're
tax breaks is a big reason.
I mean, I guess, yeah, aside from that, but like he does have like a weird history of voting. So I do understand like kind of being like, hey, what is this this is kind of contradictory, but the way that it's being delivered in such a I don't know, it seems a bit too is condemnatory a word, but
I think it might be, actually.
It just seems very venomous for what could honestly be just like, you could really have just reached out to him and been like, hey, what's this about? And I think that would have been an interesting kind of thing, you know, like to actually reach out to the people that you're writing about. But I don't think people do that anymore. Nobody reached out to us when we fucking...
Oh, when Kotaku wrote about us or all these other sites. And
we
did reach out to this email we had from you in 2012 or something. I'm like,
yeah, it's like, thanks.
Cool, thanks, guys. So
they waited 30 minutes, too.
I know, thanks, guys, for that. I feel like I want to just go back to my 2008 example. If we're going to reduce people to their actual political actions and who they support and what they support, then what did my support against Prop 8 and for Barack Obama in 2008, what does it mean? And the answer is that there's no answer to that, because it's a completely complex and ridiculous thing to hold someone to.
Yeah.
You know? And my whole thing is like, this guy it's not like they dug up some like obscure forum where he's going off about white nationalism. It's not like he has like some spoof Twitter account where he's calling everyone, you know, a homo or something and being really belligerent and offensive. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he literally just made political donations. It's actually like one of the most peaceful ways to interact with the political system in the United States. And I agree with you, the whole giving money. I actually donate money to politicians a few times a year probably, but it's often either a small amount or it's for merch. Like I'll buy a shirt, I'll buy signs. And I know that they get that money, so I get something in return. And I like to sometimes just put those signs away, just to have like a cool little small collection of like these old political signs. But,
that's fair.
But to me, I'm not
saying it's like not something that people do. Like I've supported like people running, but like usually like if they're already in there, like I'm just like, all right, whatever. Like fucking, like I'm gonna keep my money, thanks. But it's not like it's the worst thing you can do. I'm just always kind of confused at it because I like to keep my money.
No, I totally get that. I just feel like if a man can't peacefully interact with one of the two major American political parties, which garnered the second most amount of popular votes in American history last time, behind Biden's first number, right? It's not like this is an obscure fringe. It's not.
Yeah.
And like, so if he wants to interact with it and say like, well, maybe he gives money to Donald Trump because he's a culture warrior. Maybe he gives money to Mitch McConnell because he wants Supreme Court justices. By the way, it's worth noting this guy is an open and devout pro-life Christian. So clearly he's going to vote for or give money to a guy who has massive control in Mitch McConnell over the dictation of Supreme Court justices and all of that if they get the majority again. So I'm not trying to get too political. It's just, to me, this guy didn't do anything. That's the really shitty thing. It's like they don't even point to anything that's actionable,
Can I say something though? I feel like my honest interpretation of this whole thing is that like we said already, this dude's loaded. He could make another game if he wanted to. I don't think this would really hurt him at all. I don't think this amounts to really anything. What I think is happening here is I think he's run Five Nights at Freddy's into the ground and his soul has been shattered into like 5 million pieces, and he finally has a reason to just kind of like not do it. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, because like if this happened to me and I was this loaded, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to make another game and it's going to sell way more because I'm going to be an absolute dick about it. That's how I would handle the situation if this was happening to me and people were like digging into my political donation, especially because, in comparison to some donations that could be there, not even remotely as bad as it could be. So this just seems to me like somebody who's, how many Five Nights at Freddy's are there at this point? Like fucking 20, it feels like.
I don't know. I don't even know I really still don't even know what it is.
Like a stupid amount. And I don't care how much money you make. I don't if you're like a developer, an indie person who like created this thing, eventually you're probably going to feel like a bit of a dickhead for just like constantly milking this one cow, and you're just gonna feel like, you know what, maybe if I got a little bit of controversy here, this is a good time to step away and just enjoy my money for once, instead of having to feel obligated to continue doing this this bottom of the barrel. Because like, let's be real, like Final Fantasy Five Nights at Freddy's is just, it's not really that good of a game. Like I've played a couple of them and they're like fine. Like they're nice little indie games, but they're really nothing to write home about. And it's just the truth of it. I feel like that's what's really happening here. But that's entirely speculative on my part.
You could be right. I mean when something bad happens or something bad happens to you or kind of things culminate, I can relate in some way, because when I was unhappy at Kind of Funny, I was unhappy enough where when something happened that was going to drive me out, I just embraced it. I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
So it could be, you could be right. But I just want to encourage people to think a little bit more complexly about these issues. There, like you said, Chris, there is a spectrum in which we can analyze politics. First of all, I'm not one of the people, as everyone knows that listens to this show, that says like politics don't belong in games. Politics doesn't belong in games coverage. I don't believe that at all. I write political games. The second thing is that I think that we should have a more open and honest corporate, economic, cultural, social conversation around games at all times. But I feel like when it's as simple as going into public databases and finding what the money someone gave to, and it's not like he gave it to the guy running for some obscure white nationalist party or something, again, mainstream political parties. And I just ask people to think about my experience in 2008 and then ask themselves, well, if a man like this is saying, I gave money for X, Y, or Z to these guys, but I also do believe in your right to live and have a happy life and do your thing, why wouldn't you necessarily believe that? I do feel like there's room for complexity, and I'm disappointed. I don't like to make fun of this sort of thing. I don't do it actively, but it is turning into a caricature to say, like, you look at someone's Twitter or Instagram profile and it's like, she, her, bisexual Latino queen, like all this kind of stuff about the immutable characteristics, the identification, the slicing of yourself in a million different ways to isolate yourself from others, to other people away from you, to dehumanize other people, or whatever the case might be, instead of looking at everyone as an individual. I don't care about any of that. I don't. I want to know who you are. If those things stand as a barrier between me getting to know who you are, which often happens, then that does leave us on the opposite sides of the spectrum, because I find you inoperable, right? And not you, of course, the royal you. And I've said it many times. This unholy alliance that's growing between the Bernie left and the center to mid-right in the United States is a glorious thing, and I'm all about it. Like, it's happening because both of those groups hate the identitarians. Hate them. And the people that want to subdivide and group everyone up and castigate people for immutable things, like it matters that my family got on a boat 90 years ago in Italy and came to the United States. I had nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with it. It doesn't control my life. I'm not going to let it control who I am. And I just wanted to put that message out there because I think it's an important message. Everyone is welcome here. And I feel like we can never reduce someone, and rather let's appreciate their complexity as an individual and cut this shit out. And I said it very boldly, or not boldly, but just outwardly on Twitter. I'm probably going to vote for the Republican candidate and give him money in the gubernatorial race in Virginia this year. So when someone digs that up, now you know. That's too bad if you don't like it, because I'm exercising my personal political agency. It has nothing to do with the show. It has nothing to do with the audience. And it's me peacefully working in a system, in the mainstream of the system. And I saw this story, and I wasn't originally going to talk about it, but I wanted to because I think it's fucked up. And it's just another example. These guys will twist themselves into a pretzel, Chris, to square their LGBTQ bona fides with, support of basically tacit support of Hamas, which would kill them. But when it comes to like just a dude with a family making video games, not doing anything, not saying anything to anyone, just giving donations away, he's destroyed. And I'm sorry, that's just ironic to me. Yeah. It's the same thing with this guy on Twitter that I was dealing with, twisting himself into a pretzel about SNK and how their moral equivalence with LGBTQ treatment. It's like, you have to be crazy to think that. There are countries in this world where you'd be dead if you flew the rainbow flag, and the United States isn't one of them. So that, I just think let's talk a little bit more realistically. Chris, I didn't know if you were going to say something. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. And so that's all I wanted to say. Dustin, is there anything you wanted to add before we wrap this section up?
No, I think that I think we've covered a broad level of opinions here, which is why people like the show. So I'm glad we could do that.
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's always important. That's why when Chris says, like, I thought it was funny, I was like, can I say something? I was like, well, of course. You can say something. You can say whatever you want. Yeah.
It's just a default way to like interject. No, it wasn't like a genuine question.
I understand.
But yeah.
So everyone's welcome here. As long as you're not like a fringe crazy person, you're not abusing people, hurting others. Your politics are irrelevant, whether you're a socialist or conservative or pro-life or what. I don't care.
Yeah. Just don't recommend Kingdom Hearts to me in my DMs. Please don't. It's the one thing I ask of you.
Please don't.
I'm getting a lot of that lately. I don't know what the hell is going on. I don't know what happened. I don't know if you guys said anything, but I'm getting a lot of weird people in my DMs being like, "Hey, you should play Kingdom Hearts," out of nowhere.
There's a Kingdom Hearts fan on the show now, and so the fans don't know how to act, and so I must calm the fan base.
Yeah, that's true. You are
stand down.
Stand down, fan base.
Stand down.
All right. Another story that I wanted to talk about and I wanted to especially get Chris's take on this because he tweeted about it, is this thing with Bethesda, Todd Howard, Pete Hines, and this idea of, Xbox exclusivity. It's been confirmed. It was confirmed really months ago, but obviously reconfirmed again. Games like Starfield, Redfall, etc. are going to be exclusive. The Elder Scrolls 6 in the future. Hines apparently said to GameSpot, Pete Hines. So Pete Hines was the longtime marketing lead at Bethesda, obviously works for Bethesda still. And he said in part to them, and this is according to Video Game Chronicle, the website, quote, if you're a big fan of stuff we make in a game that we're making and it is no longer available on your platform, I totally understand if you are unhappy or pissed or whatever. I get it. Those are real feelings and frustrations. I don't know how to allay the fears and concerns of PlayStation 5 fans other than to say, well, I'm a PlayStation 5 player as well, and I played games on that console, and there's games I'm going to continue to play on it. But if you want to play Starfield, it's on PC and Xbox. Sorry, all I can say is I apologize because I'm certain that that's frustrating to folks, but there's not a whole lot I can do about it. End quote. So I really loved the candor of that answer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Pete Hines is speaking from two different places, maybe even three different places, because he made, no doubt, I would argue, tens of millions of dollars in the acquisition. I can't imagine how you can be there for 25 years in that position and not have walked away in a $7.5 billion deal with a lot of money. Yet he's also speaking from the perspective of someone who has multi-platform bona fides. They've supported multiple platforms for 30 years.
Yeah.
Until now. And I do think, and I want to talk after I let you go, Chris, about why I think this is an interesting situation. It's not quite the same as what other people are comparing it to. But I thought what you said was really interesting, where people weren't bitching to this level about Spider-Man and other things that you would conceivably think would come to everything. And Insomniac and Sony are quite stingy and open about saying, like, well, that's the way it goes, and everyone kind of almost celebrates that. I was just curious what you thought about Pete Hines' comments and how do you square it with, I guess, the current reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice that somebody in that position is able to speak that clearly and that openly. I think that's cool. Like, but I also just I wonder what the need even is for an apology. I just don't understand it. To me, it just seems like these exclusivity deals have been around for ages, and even if you count the Elder Scrolls and other Bethesda games, is Morrowind, can you play Morrowind on PlayStation platforms? I feel like you can't.
No, Morrowind's never been available on PlayStation.
Yeah, so it's it's not even this is out of. It's not even this is necessarily out of character. Bethesda has a lot of titles that were very, very Xbox focused in the past. Even Oblivion and even the Skyrim that we got functioned infinitely better on the 360 than the PS3. So it seems like of all the acquisitions, this seems to make the most sense to me, and it's just confusing to me that people are oh, hey, here's this new IP that has no history, that doesn't exist yet, really, for all intents and purposes. And it's exclusive to not only Xbox, but also PC. When Sony was very clearly trying to secure this game as an exclusive as well.
Yeah, that's true.
And that would have been only available on one platform, not even on PC. So it's what? I don't understand. I just don't understand the anger. It just doesn't. It's literally available to more people with this acquisition than it would have been had Sony, stepped in and got it. As we know now, that Deathloop is apparently a permanent exclusive. I don't see nearly as many people flipping out about that, even though that game looks awesome. That game looks sick. I feel like Deathloop's probably going to be better than Starfield, to be completely frank.
Oh, I think it's going to be up more our alley for sure.
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. So I think what you're totally right too, Chris, about Morrowind, and this is forever in the industry.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird to me that I understand at a base level being disappointed, that sucks, but I just the vehement nature of it, the fact that enough of a shitstorm was started to warrant an apology in the first place. It's very weird. It's the same. It reminds me of when oh my God, was it Days Gone, or what was the PlayStation game that came to PC? The Horizon. It was like when Horizon came to PC, and people were like flipping out. It's like, how dare they put it on PC, and like, and you compare that with the Halo series coming to PC, and everybody was flipping out. They were like celebrating, and everybody was like ecstatic. Like, people had wanted this for so long, and I just feel that, you know, I love PlayStation, and I love this platform, and like the PS1's like probably like my favorite console of all time. I love that machine with like all my heart. All those IPs are still really important to me. But like, I feel like there's a weird protectionist kind of like spirit in the audience that is just very unbecoming and very like kind of annoying. Like, I just don't understand where this is coming from when everybody else has dealt with this for so long.
Well, I think you're right, but I think that maybe you answered your own question, is that it's kind of new for this fan base. And I'm going to present, Dustin, and I want to get you in here too. I'm going to present the devil's advocate argument, which I think is interesting. I don't think it really persuades me, but it's an interesting argument. The argument from a so-called PlayStation fanboy, a protectionist, let's say, is Sony has never gone out and bought someone and then taken it away from everyone else. And actually, that's true. If you look at their studio history, they were buying studios that they had already worked with that were already making PlayStation exclusives. Sucker Punch, well, Insomniac's the last studio they bought, and obviously they let Insomniac go. They made an Xbox exclusive, and then they came back, and then Sony acquired them. Before that, it was 10 years, or it was actually 8 years at that point. Before that, when they bought Sucker Punch, and Sucker Punch had been making Sly Cooper and then Infamous before they made Infamous 1. So they got through all of Sly Cooper and then Infamous before they were purchased. And people make these examples over and over again. And the only kind of conceivable example of a game, maybe, or a studio like Liverpool that existed before Sony even existed as a PlayStation entity, that were making like Wipeout and stuff, and those were PC games. But generally speaking, the argument against what Chris is saying is Sony never went and bought a Bethesda and then was like, we're taking all of that away now. And I personally don't really care as a gamer because, like Chris said, it's business, it's normal, but also because I don't care about Bethesda games that much, like with the exception of machine games, as I've said many times. But if that happened with Square Enix or Capcom or something like that, I'd be fucking mad. And I can understand that. And so I'm not really, I have access to all the consoles. I'll play whatever I want. I'm not like really that invested in this at all. But that to me seems like a reasonable argument to say, like, Sony, to be fair, has never gone out and done this. And in fact, Microsoft has done this before. You know, they did it with Rare as well. So it's not like that. And that was a straight up trade basically with Nintendo and Microsoft. So,
but that's the thing. It's like, I think what confuses me more about this is that this is literally how Microsoft has always operated. Like, this is not new. I don't know if this is news to people, but Microsoft bought Bungie to take Halo away from Apple's Mac platform. Like, that's literally how the Xbox got started, is this exact kind of acquisition. It's like, hey, this is a great game. Let's take it away from Apple. It's just how they've always worked.
Right, and that was like that was off of Marathon, right? Which was their
Marathon. Bungie used to make Mac exclusive, like, you know, PC, like, you know, computer games. And then Microsoft swept in and stole them for the Xbox. And then, like, you know, that's the reason why they're still around today. And like, I understand what people are saying. Like, I understand, like, this is a different scale too. Like, Microsoft is way bigger, so they can afford to do this. In no doubt in my mind that if the size of these companies were reversed, Sony would be doing the same thing. Like, because it just makes sense. They're doing it on a smaller scale, as we talked already about. Like, they tried to secure Starfield behind closed doors as like a individual game, and they're free to do that. And they did it with Deathloop. And they did it as in a timed capacity with Ghostwire, and they're doing it in a timed capacity with all these Final Fantasy games. Is Final Fantasy VII Remake even available on Xbox? I have no idea. I don't think so. You know, is something like Street Fighter? Yeah, that's like Street Fighter 5 is just completely off that platform. Like, I don't know. Can you play that on Xbox? I don't think you can.
No, I don't think so.
It's just, I don't know. Like, I'm on every ecosystem, right? And I've been a part of the Xbox ecosystem for a very, very long time. Still am. Been a part of the PlayStation ecosystem for a very long time as well. And I remember there were games that came out and I was just like, why is that just not on Xbox? It's very bizarre that that's not on Xbox. And I understand that Spider-Man is like an Insomniac thing, but there's never been an exclusive Spider-Man game unless it was something made specifically for, like, I don't know, maybe like a, you know, like a oh my god, a Virtual Boy Spider-Man game that would like not work on anything else, you know what I mean? But Spider-Man has a huge history of being multi-platform, and then all of a sudden just this AAA Spider-Man game is just not available to like the majority of people. Like, it's just, I remember thinking like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but I remember that kind of subsided pretty quickly because it's like, whatever, it's Insomniac, you know, whatever, they're working on it. And it's just weird that people can have that response to that, but when it's like, hey, you know, here's Avowed, here's the next Obsidian game, here's the next whatever game, it's being funded by Microsoft now it's a problem, you know? It's just like, this is just how the industry works, and I understand it's disappointing, but like, these games are also coming to PC, you know? They are made available on more platforms with this acquisition than they would have been if, you know, Sony had taken them. You know?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that.
That's the way to look at it. That's, in my opinion, the way to look at it.
I think you're right. By the way, I think it's to your point. You mentioned it several times. There would have been an almost celebratory nature if Starfield was scored by Sony, and obviously, as I said on last week's show, Sony saw the game and was impressed enough by it to try to chase it. Mm-hmm. And they don't have the money to go out and buy studios, really. And it's to support your claim, by the way, it's important to note that Spider-Man was made by Insomniac when Insomniac was still second party. So this was an even stranger deal. Dustin, let's bring you in and see how you feel about this whole drama and Pete Hines's seeming. I thought Pete Hines was very classy about it. What else are you supposed to say?
Yeah, and I thought it was weird that he had to go. I mean, I understand because it's the internet that he had to go and clarify his apology. That it's just like he wasn't apologizing for Microsoft's business. He was just like, hey, this is disappointing. I'm sorry that this is disappointing. I think that's a classy move. The one thing I will say, Colin, is that you put in the devil's advocate of like, oh, well, Sony doesn't go and buy games to take them away. That is true, but only in the fact that Microsoft goes and has bought games that have already been announced with no platform and then made them exclusive. We saw that with Starfield, which Sony was going to do that. So that's already kind of like, But like, think about Final Fantasy 13, multi-platform, that whole trilogy, multi-platform. Final Fantasy 15, multi-platform on launch day. And then suddenly Final Fantasy 7 Remake, exclusive. Final Fantasy 16, exclusive. Those games were bought. And though they weren't announced for Xbox, they're being taken away because they went and bought the rights. We saw a precedent for the last decade of Final Fantasy games releasing on Xbox on launch day, and now they're not. So Sony has done that exact same thing. It's just they weren't announced beforehand.
Fair enough.
So, which I know you were just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to play. Yeah, I'm trying to play devil's advocate because I see that argument, and I think it is somewhat compelling, right? You're right in the sense that Final Fantasy 16 was in development. Sony has and has for 25 years with Square Enix. Remember, their marriage during the PS1 era gave us Final Fantasy 7 and allowed Squaresoft at the time to put up their full vision, which was impossible on the N64. They really came to their rescue. And so I think there's a lot of respect there and mutual admiration, which is why Square is willing to do this. And I think the same exists with Nintendo. I don't think Square has any love for Microsoft in a lot of different ways. I think it's cool that they bring their games later to them or whatever. But people say in these devil advocates conversations, well, Sony should go buy Square Enix and just take everything. And I'm like, no, like that sucks.
Yeah.
Why would you want to like, that's an eye for an eye kind of shit, you know? And I'm saying that just from the audience's perspective. That would be a great move for Sony to go and buy Square Enix. I think that would be awesome actually for Sony to do that for them, but I don't want to see that because that just cuts everyone out and it sucks. We have to also blame, I think, a little bit Marvel and Disney, by the way, for Spider-Man. When we're talking about Insomniac and Spider-Man, Marvel and Disney are going around and getting exclusives all over the place. So Indiana Jones is clearly going to be an Xbox game, you know? And that's going to be their answer to Spider-Man in terms of pound for pound shit. And that's going to come out when the next indie movie comes out, probably. It's going to be huge. So I think what I said to you, Chris, on Twitter is what I think is the most lucid comment one can make about this, which is sometimes the shoe is on the other foot. You know, sometimes that just happens, and that's it. Dustin?
I want to hear. I'm very intrigued by this write-in from Sean. The very next one. Do you want me to read it?
If you want.
Do we want to get into this? I have some thoughts about this.
Yeah, well, you want me to present it, and then what do you want to
present it?
I'll present it.
So, your sultry voice will present it well.
Yeah, let me host, Dustin. Let me host.
I'm sorry, I'm excited.
Sean Kelvey wrote in and said on Patreon, of course, like you can, says, "Hey guys, I was wondering how do you guys interpret Todd Howard's comments on his feelings of Starfield not being on PlayStation? He said, in quote, and this is in part, of course, quote, well, I will just say I want everybody to have the ability to play it in some fashion, end quote. I feel like people have got to let this go, though. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen way after Starfield comes out. We're talking about 2024, maybe. It's like, I don't know, Dustin, you seem maybe a little more bullish on this than I am.
Well, I don't know. It's weird that he cut himself off. Like, it could be something as minimal as the fact, like, well, we're still making a cloud version that if you have a controller and the app on your TV, which is something they've talked about, you'll be able to play it. So maybe he was going to say something like that. Maybe he was going to say something like, well, we're still making Elder Scrolls for PS5, which, here's the thing. I'm not going to plant my flag in this. I'm not. So whatever happens, whatever announcement, you don't need to come after me like you did to Colin, like, you know, Sony pony, whatever. I think Elder Scrolls
Keep it to the thread, by the way. I took the L and made a thread for you to insult me. That's all I ask is you keep it to that thread. You know?
No, impossible.
Jesus. Anyway, go on.
I think Elder Scrolls will still come to PS5.
That's
personally
possible. I mean, I don't know. It's just, what do you think of that, Chris? Do you think Todd was about to say something?
I don't know. Like, it's I cut myself off. I cut myself off a lot. I feel like it's probably like nothing. I feel like he's just. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you start the sentence just to get the mind working, and then you figure out what you're gonna say afterwards. I do that a lot, so I don't know if I'd be willing to read all that much into it. I will say though, I don't think Elder Scrolls is gonna come to PS5. I think that's going to be 100% exclusive. Not only because they're going to be essentially fully funding it at this point, but Elder Scrolls has a precedent for being exclusive to Xbox in a way that really no other Bethesda IP has, like we talked about earlier, Morrowind is just on the original Xbox. And by the way, you can still play that now on via backwards compatibility. I don't know why you want to do that. It's ancient. But
do they give those games achievements like those old games? Do they ever go back and like give them achievements?
I don't know. I have all my notifications on Xbox turned off, so like even if I did get achievements, I wouldn't know. But
Chivos, as the children used to call them.
Chivos. No, I don't know. I think some of them do, but I think the older ones probably don't. I think they just get treated with like a nice up-res and a nice like frame rate boost, and it's nice quality of improvements, But anyway, like, because that game is exclusive, I think they'll have like a reason to be like, hey, you know what? This isn't even something that people can get all that frustrated about. Like, this is like pretty usual at this point. But we'll see.
I feel like I'm going to split the difference between you guys. I think Elder Scrolls 6 is so far away that Game Pass will be on PlayStation by the time that game comes out. That's my whole thing. Like, I think you're looking at a game that's 5 years away.
Yeah.
So
yeah, certainly.
I have no problem saying that. Like, I think Game Pass finds its way on the PlayStation by that point. And I still think that the end game is to get Game Pass on PlayStation. A tailor-made, very specific first and second party version that doesn't hurt Sony's third party, allows Microsoft to get subscription dollars from PlayStation audiences that will otherwise never go to them. And then maybe draw people over for the newer games. Maybe you have some sort of delayed response. Maybe Halo Infinite isn't, well, that's a bad example. But let's say Game Pass is available now on PlayStation. Maybe Halo Infinite doesn't come to Game Pass on PlayStation for 2 years. But maybe Master Chief Collection's on there and all the other stuff. So I'm going to say that Dustin is right just by virtue of that Game Pass will be on PlayStation by then. That's my guess.
That's interesting.
Bold.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's a bold prediction.
It is. Another one of those predictions that is so multifaceted that I can somehow tell you that I'm right when it happens.
Yeah.
So I feel like I just want to say to the audience, I think you got to let this go. I just want to reiterate that. I think it's time to let this go.
Yep.
It's fun. I love the hypothesizing. I love the corporate aspect of it. I do think it's interesting that Microsoft is allowing Bethesda to keep its imprint. I think that means that there is some intention to get some of their games out on other platforms. I just don't think it's going to be Bethesda Game Studios games. I think that it's entirely possible Wolfenstein comes to PlayStation or Doom comes to PlayStation or something. Because they said, Chris, games with a heritage on PlayStation will come to PlayStation, and Wolfenstein has a heritage going all the way back before machine games even existed. But it doesn't have that Elder Scrolls heritage, like you said. In fact, like the Elder Scrolls, PlayStation has been the worst place historically to play the Elder Scrolls, especially Skyrim, but also Oblivion. So yeah. If it happens, it's good and great. But if it doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen with these games coming up, then you just got to let it go. And if it happens, then it's a nice little surprise for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do wonder, hey, Dustin, you're right. What was he going to say? What the fuck was he going to say?
Maybe nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe nothing.
But these guys are so media trained and so sharp that part of me refuses to believe that Todd Howard was about to fucking out a PS5 version of Starfield. I mean, it's literally unbelievable. I just don't think that was going to happen. So
no.
Okay, let's see here. Banana Ham Cake wrote into us on Patreon. Says, hello, my sweet boys. Any thoughts surrounding the mysterious PS5 game Abandoned? The studio behind the game recently tweeted out something odd, saying the actual title starts with S and ends in L. Is this actually a new Silent Hill game? Why would they add fuel to that fire when they already stated back in April that the game won't be Silent Hill? Dustin, this is a crazy... I sent this link to Chris, too, on PlayStation Lifestyle. A lot of people have different rundowns of this. This is insane. And the coincidences are too many to ignore. Whether or not it's real or not, I don't know. But I want to believe, because it's just so Kojima-esque. I'm wondering if, Dustin, if you can give us a rundown and kind of talk to us a little bit about what's going on here with this.
I'll try my best. So a few months ago, on the PlayStation blog, a game was revealed that was codename Abandon. It's not the actual title, but it was on the blog. There's a trailer that kind of has a weird voiceover, and it's just like someone walking around in a forest. And there really wasn't a lot of information about it. And people have started to dig around and find that this Blue Box studio is very mysterious in a few different ways. Specifically that somehow they have some kind of exclusive PlayStation deal, but they don't really have any games to show for it. Now, they did have a Kickstarter in 2015, which kind of looked like a bit of a shell game that did not get really funded at all. And the only known employee of this studio, what is his name? Let me bring up this Push Square article. He's Turkish, right?
Yeah, it's let me see if I can find it for you.
The Dutch developer working on PlayStation 5 game Survival.
Hassan Karaman.
Right.
Hassan Karaman.
This is the only known employee of Blue Box Game Studios, which, by the way, their logo is the same square as PlayStation and use the same font as PlayStation Studios. So that,
yeah, there's just so many things.
It's really weird.
So to zero in on some of the more important stuff, because there's so many details. Like, this is like the epitome of the Charlie Day meme,
right?
Of like him, like, like smoking a cigarette and whatever.
The Pepicillia.
Yeah. So they put out a tweet that said, guess the name. Abandon equals first letter S, last letter L. Reveal closing in. Now, part of what's weird about this reveal is that they say that they're getting a PlayStation 5 app where you can download this app and watch the trailer for this game in real time on your PS5.
Right.
What other fucking game has done this? Ever?
Phantom Pain.
Phantom Pain? Was that a thing? Oh,
well, no, I'm saying like this whole sort of like
this
mystery,
whole thing.
Yeah, this Phantom Pain. That's why I think that's the biggest piece of evidence of all, I think. But anyway, go on.
Right, that's an important thing to bring up, is that when Phantom Pain came out, they had this studio that was working on it. Was it Moby Dick?
Moby Dick, yeah.
Yeah, and they had a Twitter that was like, no, we're not related to Metal Gear. Does Metal Gear have flying flaming whales? Haha, like clearly denouncing, even though we all, people knew. So the same thing has happened here. Blue Box put out a tweet. We wanted to set things straight. We have no relations with Konami. Silent Hill is owned by Konami. We do not have any relations with Hideo Kojima. It was never our intention to tease the name as Silent Hill. We sincerely apologize to this. So they are coming out and denying this, but they're still saying like, hey, this PS5 trailer app is coming. Now, Colin, when we were tweeting about, or not tweeting, we were texting about this, and I feel like there is one major smoking gun about this. And I verified this on Google Translate that I already forgot the name that you said of the name.
Hassan Karaman.
Right. If you put Hideo Kojima in Google Translate and you put translate from Japanese to Turkish, which is, even though this is a Dutch game, the only developer that we know attached to the project, you translate it to Turkish, it is his name. From Hideo to this man's name, which I just heard you say, but I've already blanked out because I can't remember. It translates exactly. Maybe not. I saw some people like, well, it's not the same kanji. It's like,
yeah, that's
okay.
That's not relevant, though, because I think people are missing the forest for the trees with that. It's just a hint. It's not to say like it's literal language, like the right language. It's just a hint. Here, and Chris, we'll go to you on this. I mean, here are some of the things that I think are interesting about this.
Mm-hmm.
Blue Box Game Studios seems to tweet during the middle of the night in the Netherlands, but during the workday in Japan. That's one piece of interesting information. The second piece of interesting information is, like you said, and that was what made me a believer in quotes, was the Hideo thing. I'm like, that is just too much. Also, this dude there's no one else that we even know, like, has even claimed to be on this team, right? Like, you think that there would be someone else that would come and claim to be on this team. The account for Blue Box was made 1 year to the date after PT came to PlayStation 4. That's another interesting thing. Now, it's there's way more to this. And so
it keeps going, dude.
So you brought up the logo. If you bring up the PlayStation Studios, new PlayStation Studios logo, and then Blue Box Game Studios logo and put them together, they look like they're inverted versions of each other. Like you said, not only the text, but the way they use color is totally inverted. And some people have said, like, well, PlayStation's new logo ends on a blue box. If you look at the Death Stranding director's cut trailer, Sam has a Dutch flag on him. Clear as day. You can go look for yourself. There is a random Dutch flag on his armor, right? Like,
right.
There's all sorts of weird things. Now, this guy, Hassan Karaman, has a confirmed PlayStation Network account. Now, this is where things get really fucking weird. Have you guys seen?
I didn't know this.
I didn't know about this. I didn't know about this.
So, if you look at his account, Hassan Karaman, he plays games that don't even exist. One of them is called, because you know how you can see like the games recently played? He played a game called Demon Blood. And Demon Blood doesn't exist. No one knows what it is. And it looks like it could be a Pyramid Head reference, some people are saying. And which is, of course, the antagonist in Silent Hill. And his name is Sneaky Warrior. And Sneaky Warrior has 1,238 trophies. The same number as the Silent Hill 4 Japanese commercial. It's a number that was like prominently shown in Silent Hill 4's Japanese commercial 1238. So there's all this weird stuff, and people are like, well, what the hell is Demon Blood? Like, that's not even. And there are other, like, you usually don't get packages that expose things because you can get early access on PS5's network, but this isn't something that's usually done for games that are not internal. Mm-hmm. Like, well, they'll make a package and send it to everyone. I'm trying to read more. There's just so much more to this.
Yeah.
There's some of it I don't think, by the way, is like very convincing. And the one thing that convinces me against it, I should say, is that it seems like this is such a long con that if it is a con, that like the guy released like an early access game on iOS and Android. Apparently the games were both taken down and have only been downloaded a few times each. It just seems like something Kojima would do. And just the name of the game. Now, I will say this. And Joshua Weiberg wrote into this about this. He says, "Hey guys, I'll keep this short. Is Blue Box Game Studios playing a risky game by clearly leaning into the Silent Hill rumors with their latest tweet? They had to know the feedback they would receive by saying the name of their game starts with an S and ends with an L. I will say this by now, if this is not Kojima, I feel really bad for these guys because it's over. Like, they're done. You know, I just can't imagine that anyone's going to want. And so that was their mistake. But it's just an echo of what has already happened, right? Like Phantom Pain, I actually had forgotten about that. That's how long ago that was. And you remember when the Phantom Pain logo was revealed that people quickly figured out it was Metal Gear because if you like put certain lines over it, they all, you know how Metal Gear has that awesome logo where it writes it out and it's all those lines. You can put those lines over Phantom Pain's logo and it says Metal Gear Solid. So I feel like, Chris, this has got to be Kojima, right? I mean, what is your declaration? Because we're going to find out, I think, next week. So
I think this has to be something, right? Like, I feel like he has to be involved in some capacity with this because like you said, it's so weird. And just the Google Translate thing was the big thing for me because I was just like, what the fuck is that? That seems like such an obvious yet like playful kind of like subtle thing to do. I really, there's got to be something to this, but I'm really with you in the sense that, dude, if these people really just leaned into this and they really have nothing to do with Kojima at all, there's gonna be blood, man. These are gonna be like it's a baby in a blender at that point. Like, this is donezo. Like, how irresponsible to just lean into this. But yeah, I definitely think there's something to this. Like, I do think this is a Kojima thing. Like, it's just so fucking weird to not be. It'll be really disappointing if it isn't, man. But I think it is.
Well, there's one other.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's something that people aren't bringing up either in relation to this story, and that is, I believe with PT, I can't remember exactly, but I believe that acclaimed manga artist Junji Ito, which some of you may know, I wore a Junji Ito shirt last week on Sacred Symbols. Not related. Maybe I willed it into existence or something. In an interview at Comic-Con 2020, he was interviewed and said this, quote, "I do know director Kojima, and we have been in conversation that he may have a horror-based game that he may be doing. And so he has invited me to work on that, but there are no details on it yet."
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple other interesting things too. People point out that the Dutch connection might have to do with Guerrilla. Obviously, Decima is run by Guerrilla, and Kojima is friendly with them. But the important thing to note against that is that the splash screen for the game says that the game is running on Unreal. So I don't know if that connection is relevant. But there are other connections too. One of the interesting things is on one of their games, they made a game called Go Fit XL, or like an app, a fitness and health app.
Yes.
And it was only downloaded 5 times and then taken down. And it says personal training PT program as like its description. You know, like just little things like that. And I'm like, can it just be this? Like,
there's only so many coincidences, you know? And I understand, like, look, the human brain is like really good at recognizing patterns, even when there are none. Like, I get that. Like, that's the famous thing about the human brain. But this just seems like way too many just objectively verifiable coincidences, like in a row, all related to very specific things that, like, it's hard for me to believe. Like, Occam's razor to me is that there's something with this that is beyond just like some new studio and some new game. I really do think that there's some ties here to Kojima and whatever the hell he's doing. I think it's a little weird that he would do that, given that he already has a studio. There's no real reason for him to be this cagey, but I think he also likes doing this. I think this is something that he has a lot of fun doing, even in his, in his video games themselves. Like, freaking, even just going back to Metal Gear Solid 1 with the, changing controller ports to fight the boss. It's just like weird shit outside of the box thinking that I think Kojima's just really good at. And this seems like something he would have a lot of fun doing. And look, there's got to be something.
There's more. I think I'm reading, by the way. There's more. I didn't know this. Junji Ito is the guy you brought up, right? The
Yes.
artist.
He's awesome.
Demon Blood, the game Hassan Karaman is playing. The art looks like it uses horror manga from Junji Ito as its art. So
I gotta see this.
So that connection is doubly established now. Also, as PlayStation Lifestyle points out, Hassan Karaman, no one knows who this guy is. No record of him anywhere, but he's a verified account on PlayStation Network. It doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. And
yeah,
I want to give this to PlayStation Lifestyle because they say this, and I agree actually with this an assessment, specifically of the Google Translate thing. They say, quote, since the original publishing of this article, multiple people have pointed out to me that if you translate Hideo from Japanese to Turkish, it becomes Karaman, and there's absolutely no way that's a coincidence, end quote. I agree. Like, that is the one thing. There's no way that guy's name is coincidentally Hideo. So my answer, by the way, because Chris answered, my answer is that yes, this has to be. Like, I don't understand how this can't be.
It's just too many coincidences, man. It's just too many.
One or two coincidences is one thing. The Dutch flag on his armor in the trailer, there's just so much. And it is weird, like they talk about, like it is weird, the 1238 connection on his number of trophies and all of the rest. Dustin, do you have something to say?
The Demon Blood thing. So the art on that, I'm looking at it now, that's Siren Head, which is like an internet creepypasta thing, kind of like Slender Man. Though it's what's so ironic.
I see.
So we're finding patterns where there are none. I recently watched a video of Junji Ito talking about some of his favorite, like talking about different online creepypasta things, and he had an extended segment where he talked about Siren Head. So there's still like a loose Junji Ito connection there, which is probably nothing.
That's probably nothing.
But it's ironic.
But
still
I don't
ironic.
know, man. Even if you were to like strain all of the like extraneous connections that we're making, like there's still way more than there would be for any other. Like, this is, God help these people if none of this is true.
Yeah, also
none of this is true.
Dude, that's the thing, is looking for signs where there are none. That's where you have to kind of temper yourself. Like, there are certain things, like the PSN account of Hassan Karaman leads to a YouTube channel called 2727. Silent Hills was confirmed publicly canceled on April 27th. The other thing that I think is maybe a little weird is that there is in the abandoned trailer, it says kill the trespasser on a wall. And if the I don't know if this is anything or not. This is where I'm a little skeptical of stuff. It says kill the trespasser, and there's a tree in front of it, and the tree is blocking the P and the T. The T in the and the P in trespasser. They're just covered up by the tree. And you can clearly see the rest of the... So it's like, I don't know, man. I mean, all I'm saying is God help these guys if this is something else.
Yeah.
I need a cigarette.
I know, seriously. So, all right. So what is, Dustin, do you think this is again, we'll know by the next time we record, I assume.
Here's what I will say. It is definitely not what it seems. I think I will say that with certainty. There is something going on with this game that is not just a Turkish guy with a Dutch studio releasing a PS5 exclusive game where they're getting their own app. Yeah, something's up with that. Something is happening. Is it Kojima? I'm a little mixed on, because dude, the long con, there's a verifiable Kickstarter from 2015. Like, you can't just what do they made a deal with Kickstarter to retroactive? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
it was there.
That's why I'm saying, did they go and buy this entity as a spoof? Did they start planting the seeds for this a long time ago? Why doesn't anyone who knows this man just say oh, I know him. He worked at Gorilla, or we don't.
This is a name that's never come up. Also, it never once has this name come up before. It's just very. All of this is so weird.
Here's what I'll say, and I said this to you, Colin, last night. It is either the greatest hoax and pulling a fast one on us that Kojima or whoever has ever done. This will go down in history as one of the craziest things in the industry. or it is the most insane set of coincidences that somebody mistakenly let get away from them and is going to crash and fucking burn.
Yeah, I mean, that's the unfortunate reality is they made a catastrophic mistake. I'll also note rather, Silent Hills is the name of the game, not Silent Hill. So the S&L thing could be dubious. I mean, it's just an unfortunate thing, but let's just run it. I'm not even going to run down all the weird arcane shit. Just the things that matter. This guy, whoever he is, has a studio who has access to PS5. It's not that weird. Here, look.
Oh.
Don't show the dev kit.
Everyone's saying like, oh, here's a PS5 dev kit. Here's one. It's not that weird that he has one, right? Because a lot of people were saying like, oh, he had access to PS5. He's making an exclusive. I have a fucking PS5 dev kit. So take that aside, right? But verified name, playing games that have never been announced, right? The S&L connection, the Blue Box logo connection, the Dutch connection when these things are being posted in the middle of the night. Maybe he's a night owl, who knows? But just on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So my conclusive answer, and I'm wrong about shit all the time. I'm wrong about things all the time. But Dustin, I'll say what I agree with you. Whatever this is not what it seems. There's just no way. I'm excited because, and I want to believe, because I think that this could be like a huge post E3 thing. Sony just waiting in the wings, being like, oh, that's nice. That's cute. Yeah. Oh, Starfield, that's cute. But we've been planning for 6 years somehow. This fucking ridiculous. Now, two other things that I want to note before we move on. The first thing is Konami involved in this? Is it a horror game that Sony will publish that Kojima wanted to do that, they're just going to do? Or, because the crazier thing will be when Konami comes out and they're like, oh yeah, we're in on this. And you see the Konami logo with that classic Konami logo pop up. And I'm going to be amped for that too. And I was saying that to Micah, because she's been playing games for a lot less time than I have. And I was like, it's sad because you don't know Konami. You don't remember Konami as they once existed, as a great company. And maybe this is what we need to get them back. And wouldn't it be exciting for them to partner with Sony for some exclusives? And I still think Castlevania and Silent Hill would be in the best hands with PlayStation. They don't have to buy anything or whatever, but just see what you can do.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I want to believe.
Watching some parody game called like Soylent Hall or something. Some fucking nonsense.
Sad Hill. So I know everyone wanted to hear us talk about that, and I'm very happy to do so. All right, boys, let's get into what we're playing. We're all playing Ratchet and Clank, so we can talk about that. What are you guys thinking? Where are you at, Dustin?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than I'm noticing a lot more bugs in the game. It's not broken, but I'm noticing like I got trapped in an invisible box yesterday when I was playing, and I was like, that's weird. Really weird pop-in where I'll be like walking and then like environmental geometry will just appear. And I've also seen a lot of reports of people having save corruption issues, specifically friend of the show, Jimmy Champagne. He's been getting save corruption issues, and I don't know, it's a little weird from Insomniac. They just put out an update today though, that has a lot of bug fixes. And there was a weird thing that I was tweeting about yesterday with the game was kicking on 120 hertz mode, even though it was playing in 60 for lower latency, but it was like screwing with people's HDR, which people told me it wasn't a bug, but yet they went and fixed it anyway, which it's true that it wasn't a bug. That's a problem with TVs, but it was a actual problem, but that was something they fixed. But
I would argue that still qualifies as a bug.
Right.
Yeah.
So either way, still really enjoying it. I'm finding every time I play it, I like it more.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Chris, what do you say about Ratchet?
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add to that. I think I'm in complete agreement. I've been having the same experience. I fell through the floor once. I haven't noticed any like crazy pop-in or anything, but I also don't think I'm as far in the game as either of you guys are. I kind of put it down a little bit for all the E3 stuff and just a bunch of general stuff to work on, but I'm finding the same thing where, like, you know, every time I jump back into it, I like it a little bit more, and it just feels nice to play, and it's just really good. Like, it's a little unpolished, although I will say, like, Miles Morales had its own fair share of bugs as well. You know, there was this famous one where, like, Miles would just turn into whatever random object the game decided to spawn as. And I remember some guy was, like, swinging around New York City as a tree, or like, a bag of trash, literally. So it's I wouldn't say they're like game breaking bugs or like particularly. It's not like, you know, I haven't crashed or anything, but. You know, I'll get caught on like a corner somewhere, or like I'll fall through the floor once. That's only happened once in the entire time that I've played it. But overall, pretty damn good. Maybe like a couple more patches and it'll be like polished to perfection. But even as it stands now, I think it's just really, really good and really, really solid. I think it might be. I don't know if it's my favorite Insomniac game yet. It's a bit early to tell, but it's definitely getting there. I really liked Spider-Man Miles, like, a lot. So like maybe by the time I'm done with it, it'll beat it. But it's just such a pleasant experience every time I turn it on. You know, it's just like how nice. I don't have to think about like you know, the impending doom of the planet when it's.
You don't have to, but you will.
So, I will, but like only after.
Sure.
You know.
So I'm about 70% through the game. I'm trying to really slow burn it because it is short. And it's clear that it is. And actually, we got a letter from this. A few people wrote in about this, but our friend Captain Canada, our moderator over on our very popular Discord you can join, says, "Look, Fats, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is here and it's fantastic. Unfortunately, a common criticism I'm seeing is that it's not long enough. Some people seem to have been expecting 40 plus hours, which has never been Ratchet & Clank style. While I disagree with the length criticism and am more than happy with the purchase, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the matter. Should it have been longer? Thanks for all your hard work." It seems a little short. I've played most of the Ratchet & Clank games, and it seems a little short, but I don't know. Here's my critique of it. I'm playing on normal, so obviously this is modular, but it's a little easy. And that I was a little disappointed in, where I'm like, I die pretty often, but it's mostly because I'm just like doing crazy shit. And it's mostly the game's fault. I don't want to only blame the game, but there's a lot of environmental stuff where I'm like, why can't I go on that? Why can't I jump there? Yeah. There's like stuff like right below you where I try to jump onto this platform and I just die, right? Because I'm like, I'm trying, I know it's like, you're not supposed to go there yet. I'm like, why not? Yeah, it's right there. Why can't I just jump on it?
It's like there's a lot of weird kill barriers and weird invisible walls in places that I've definitely tried that too, where I'm like, I'm trying to jump on a rock ledge that very, very clearly seems like I could jump onto it, and there's just an invisible wall that pushes me away, and it's just like, oh, that's a little weird. Why that's... I understand Ratchet & Clank's a pretty linear fare, but like, I don't know. The whole appeal to me in games that allow you to jump is the fact that like there's all this environmental geometry that you can take advantage of because you can jump, and I have noticed that where it's like, I'll try to get creative with the way that I approach something, and the game's like, no. Like, go back into the arena and shoot things, and it's like, it's a bit of a bummer. Yeah. But again, like, my history with the franchise is very, very minimal, so I don't know if that's like standard.
Well, in my opinion, because I had just played Ratchet 2016 again 2 months ago. I platinumed it. I hadn't played it since it came out, and I feel like it's a better game. I mean, but I will say that there's so much charm in this game. And I think where this game really excels is in its heart. It's very fun to play. It's beautiful. And it's just incredibly charming. I love the characters. You know, Kit, the new droid type Ratchet or Clank character's adorable, and she's got like social anxiety. And I love Rivet. I think she's awesome. Not only because she has my earrings, of course, but also because she's really adorable, and she's funny, and she's brave, and you can see all of the trappings of what could potentially be so attractive to younger people if they can just engineer this franchise towards them better. And I know that that's something Sony clearly wants, but I do think the game seems short, and I do think the game seems easy, And I do think that the game seems a little bit rough in the ways Chris was describing. Because I don't remember having any problems like that in old Ratchet games. Where, in fact, what was weird was I was trying to like jump up on some stuff and it was working. I almost felt like I was forcing myself to do it, like getting stuck and then like jumping, just mashing X and then at the top of it was like a fucking gold bolt. And I was like, but it didn't even seem like I should have gone up here. And then when there are parts where they're just like boxes and I'm trying to jump up them, just a barrier stopping me from even hitting them. So I feel like the game is a little unpolished. And it has nothing to do with like what Chris said with there's no draw distance issues, there's no pop in, there's no frame rate stutter, nothing like that. There's no technical issues like that. It's just when you'll see when you play it, and maybe this stuff will be patched by the time many of you do. But it's just a little not fine. The camera's a little weird. It clips sometimes. There are issues for sure. I'm a little surprised by the glowing nature of the reviews for this game. I think it's a great game. I recommend it. I think it's a $70 game. I think it's really fun, and I don't need games to be more than 10 hours like this. I think that's a perfect time to play it. But I'm a little surprised that it's getting like glowing reviews because the game must have been in even worse shape when critics were playing it. So I'm becoming more and more skeptical of this whole cycle of people getting early access to games. They review them. Look what happened with Cyberpunk. So I'm not saying it's not great. I'm just saying I was going into it expecting a little more, and I wonder if some people just have never played Ratchet and Clank, because I think a lot of the game is just Ratchet and Clank. It's just Ratchet and Clank. This is what Ratchet and Clank is. It's just a more beautiful Ratchet and Clank. I will say the decidedly shite part of the game, I should say parts, the Kit and the Clank parts, or it's like the little crab part. It's not even Kit. It's like the little crab thing. Those. And the thing with when you solve the puzzles with Clank, they're fine. But I'm like, why do you think that I want to do this? I want to play as Ratchet or Rivet. And I maybe just make another planet for me to go to instead of thinking that I want to like play as Clank. I don't, so it's just, I don't, that's like the last thing I want to do is play as Clank. He's a little machine. That's boring as fuck to play it.
I don't necessarily mind those sections as much. They do remind me though of, Spider-Man, the original PS4, where, you'd go back to the lab and Otto Octavius would come up to you and he'd say, "Marty, I built a time machine out of a DeLorean," or whatever the hell, and you do these like weird little like Hexic HD puzzles or like, and you couldn't not do them at the time. Like I think there's a way to skip them now, but like when we played it the first time, you just had to do these puzzles, and I'm like, dude, I just want to be Spider-Man. And it seems like those parts are an evolution of that kind of gameplay section where it's like, all right, we still want to get in your way somehow, but let's make it a little bit more action oriented. So it's not just like a flat screen and like a puzzle game. Let's make it so like, yeah, you're Clank and you're walking around and you're redirecting clones of yourself, and God knows what the implication of that even is. But they just, I don't know. It's weird. Insomniac, for as much as I love them, and as many great games as they've given us in the past, like just a handful of years, they do have this thing where it feels like sometimes they can't get out of their own way. Because the gameplay loop of Spider-Man is awesome, and I don't want that disrupted. And they learned that, I think, with Miles. And the gameplay loop of Ratchet and Clank that I've only been recently familiarizing myself with is really enjoyable. So like when I am kind of forced into this weird little spider tank or forced to play as Clank, it is kind of like, I don't know if this is I don't mind it as much as you do. I think they're still kind of fun and still kind of enjoyable, but I could see them like, I've only done those, each of those once so far. So like, they're still novel to me, but I could see potentially having to do it multiple times over the stretch of like however many hours this game lasts for. I could see them maybe overstaying their welcome a little bit. In the same way those puzzles in Spider-Man just totally just derailed the experience.
Yeah, but it's a good point to connect that because of the connection between the devs. I also, Chris, you know what I've been really, so you'll appreciate this. I reached out to my friend Marcus Smith, who directed the game, and he directed Resistance, of course, and we've been friends for a while, and I just congratulated him. I'm like, it's a really fun game. It's a great game. Very well done. and he also directed the Spider-Man DLC if you were into that. And so he reached back, and I was like, "Who did the animation for the the Dash animation?" And he's like, "Oh, that was so and so. He was responsible for the death animations in Sunset Overdrive." And when I started playing the game, I realized that there is a lot of Sunset Overdrive in the death animation generally. The way you come back in and basically reform and drop back into the world, just like Sunset Overdrive. So I thought you would appreciate that because
that is really cool.
Yeah, there is some heritage there, which I thought. Dustin, what do you think about? Am I wrong about these ancillary parts? I think that in Ratchet 2016, the Clank parts were better. They were more straightforward, and I did notice, although I noticed it accidentally and definitely took advantage of it after I noticed it, is that you can skip the puzzles in the game, which I actually didn't notice until I just paused because I was like, I'm going to go do whatever the fuck it is I'm going to do. And then I was like, oh, skip puzzle. Okay.
Right.
I had no idea. idea.
Yeah, no, well, that's the thing that's good is that they're skippable. And I think they learned that from Spider-Man, that some people just don't want to do that, which is totally fine. I don't know. I kind of liked it. I think it's because it reminds me of like the game Lemmings. Like you got to set up the correct path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a nice little bonus, but I also, dude, I think it's because the little part when you play as the spider robot, I think that little spider robot is so cute. And I like how
cute.
she's worried and and then they're just long enough. If they were any longer, I'd be like, but I think they're just a nice little taste of something different.
The characterization in the game is absolutely phenomenal. Just absolutely it's funny and it's cute. I love Mrs. Zircon because I'm a big fan of Mr. Zircon. I think Mr. Zircon, and Chris has never played the old Ratchets, and Mr. Zircon is fucking awesome, and he's basically like a robot that it's like one of your weapons, and you hail him and he just talks shit and like attacks the robots with you, and he's like, Mr. Zircon eats robots for breakfast and like shit like that. So it's cool to see Mrs. Zircon in the fold, and you're buying weapons from her, and the Zirkies is like the place where they all kind of hang out. That's the arena, which is a lot of fun. So there's a lot of throwbacks, the Pixelator and some of the other weapons, the Gloves of Doom and all of that. Those are all old weapons. So there's a lot of nice tethers to the past, but I want to say that I think that the game is adorable, and I think that is the strongest part of it. The characters are likable, the voice acting is great, good things happen to them. It's about camaraderie and friendship and overcoming obstacles. So I think it's a great game, obviously, for children. And like Micah and I were saying, what they always do really well with Ratchet, and I think do it even better in this game than they ever have, is it's funny for adults and it's funny for children for two different reasons. And that's the best kind of stuff, the multi-layered stuff where an adult's going to get something out of it, where because they say crazy shit in the game. Like they say they're nuts in the game. Like they say really funny things, especially the NPCs and like just passing by people, and they're talking about economics and government, making these obscure jokes that it's probably for your dad or your mom when they're watching you play. Meanwhile, you just think Rivet is really adorable and you love Kit or whatever. And my question is, and I assume we'll learn at the end, and I don't know, and we'll get into it in our own review discussion and spoiler cast in the coming weeks, is are we going to get a Rivet game? And a Rivet and Kit game? And I'll say, yeah, I think we are. I would be surprised if Ratchet and Clank on PS5 didn't get DLC that was just Rivet. But I don't know anything about that. I'm not telling you anything I know. Dustin,
one thing I will say.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Before we move on,
please.
I really appreciate the fact that it understands it's a video game enough to, when it switches between Rivet and Ratchet, they keep the upgrades
it's awesome.
Between them, and it's like,
and they actually note that it doesn't make any sense. Like she says, like, I don't know how it works. It's cute.
I appreciate the fact that they do that, because there are plenty of games where they would have been like, nah, man, we gotta make it so you gotta unlock them twice. Pads out playtime, dude.
Yeah,
like,
you're absolutely right. They could have definitely padded the playtime,
dude,
with that.
Easily. But like,
Respect.
I appreciate the fact that even though it doesn't make sense, it's for my convenience, and I value that highly. Awesome.
Yeah, very well said. Dustin, I was just going to kick it back over to you quick because you put Destiny 2 in here too. I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to
Well,
say.
I had it in there when I think you had a couple other stuff, and then you
I had
Rainbow
Rainbow
Moon,
Moon,
it down.
and then I removed it because I had nothing to say about Rainbow Moon.
Yeah, I'm still playing. I'm trying so hard to get raid ready so Chris and I can play, and it's just it's fun. This is the frustration of live service games, is that there's only so many things you can do in a week to level up. And so like last week I did everything, and I'm almost done this week with all the things that I can do to level up. So we'll see, and then we can update everybody on the vault of glass.
Yeah. And then we'll do that raid. What level are you? Light level?
Oh, that's a good question. I can never remember off the top of my head. I want to say that I'm in the 80s as far as like, because it goes up to 1300. I'm 1277.
Okay.
So
you got a ways to go.
I got a ways to go.
I'm sure that number has some sort of significance to Hideo Kojima as well. So you're in on you're in on it.
Yes.
All right, boys. Almost 2 hours into the show, let's get into the news. There's a lot to talk about, but there are only a few, I would say, big pieces of items, big items. And I definitely want to get everyone's take on this first one, because holy moly, I think something big is about to happen in reverse. Number one, is Bluepoint's Demon's Souls remake coming to the PlayStation 4? Well, maybe. A Twitter account known as PlayStation Game Size tweeted out the possibility, noting that there is an entry in the PlayStation Network for a PS4 iteration of the game. They note in part that, quote, this version can be canceled, can be released soon, or can only be a small test for developers, end quote. But his website Push Square confirms this account, known for having some sort of back-end access to the PSN for scraping purposes, is never wrong about what it finds. So now we're left to wonder what it means. And the reality is no one knows. While it's unclear if similar files have been found for other could-be ports, others have rightfully noted that a small handful of games have received published trophy lists for ports that never appeared. Biggest among them, Insomniac's late PS3 release Ratchet & Clank Into the Nexus, which never came to Vita but had a Vita trophy list. So right now, all we're doing is working with what little information we have, that there's a PSN entry in the database for a PS4 version of Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls was a PlayStation 3 exclusive that launched in 2009. Developed by From Software, it's widely considered to be the progenitor of the Soulsborne series, including Dark Souls and Bloodborne, that From is now renowned for. This entry would almost certainly be for the 2020 remake, however. A PlayStation 5 launch exclusive from Bluepoint Games, it's been hypothesized that it could be downgraded and brought to PS4. Dustin, I want to ask you two things. Do you believe that this is happening? And two, do you think it's possible from a technical level? Because it seems to me that I don't know why you wouldn't get Demon's Souls running on PS4. If I'm going to just throw it back into everyone's faces that keep telling me it's so easy to bring games between the two consoles. It's so easy, right?
Right.
Then if you can make the sliders go up, then certainly I guess you can bring the sliders down. But I don't really know. I don't know the nature of this game enough to know if it can come over, because the more I play Ratchet and Clank, the more I'm not convinced that it can run, that there's anything they can do to make that game run on PS4, even though last week I said that I was kind of convinced that they could. I'm a little more skeptical of that. I'm a lot more skeptical of that idea now, but not so much with Demon's Souls at all. So what do you think?
No, I think that in this game in particular could be ported to PS4 in the fact that it's really a one-to-one remake. So we're not seeing the level design changes. It does take advantage of the SSD, of course. Like there's instantaneous loading into levels and stuff like that. But again, that could be changed for the PlayStation 4, where there's just going to be atrocious loading times.
Right, like with Miles Morales, for instance.
Yeah, or it'll be 1080p 30 at you know.
That's what I would assume is going to be 1080p 30. Yeah.
Right. Now, okay, so that answers that question. The other question, is it coming to PS4? So, Colin, you knew more. I mean, you kind of, I don't know if you were one of the first people to publicly report on this game.
Well, the game was rumored. I was the first person to say that it was actually real. Yeah.
Right.
That it was 100% real that I found out. Yeah.
I'm wondering maybe at one point in development if this game, they were starting it as a PS4 game or something like that, or maybe they were toying around with the idea of it being cross-gen and then they decided to make it PS5 only. So maybe that's a remnant of that. But again, I don't know enough about the back-end system. It's like, is this something that just appeared, or is this something someone just found? That's
what I'm trying. I actually responded to the Push Square's tweet to try to solicit more information because I had questions. I was like, okay, so we know that this account isn't wrong about what it finds, but are there other first or second party examples of database entries for games that didn't appear? And we don't know the answer to that question. We don't know if the scraping is constantly happening, or if they go into different parts of the network, so that this might have been there for years. We also don't know, And someone had brought up a good point. If this is older, this could have been like a canceled or faux port of the original Demon Souls. So there are a lot of different things. All we know is that it's there, that there is some sort of database entry for a PS4 Demon Souls, but we don't know any other answers right now. I wonder, Chris, what you make of this situation.
I mean, like you said, there's a number of possibilities. I think it's very possible. I'll say this. It's of the games that we've seen running exclusively on next-gen hardware, I think this is the one where I would have the least trouble believing that it could be backwards engineered. Because, like, it's beautiful. It is gorgeous. I think, honestly, still probably the best-looking thing I've seen. Like, it's it's unreal. Like, the resolution and just the smoothness of it, it's crazy. But that's a slider. Like, that could easily be brought down. There's infinite number of ways that could be brought down to meet the standards of, a PS4 Pro. It's very easy, especially because it's segmented by loading screens anyway. There's loading that happens. It's just so fast that it's seamless, but that'll just be a loading screen then. Big deal. We've seen that a million times. So I think it's very believable that this could exist on PS4. I wonder if there's even a reason to do that, though. If Demon Souls... Like, would you want to play a Demon Souls remake if it's some, sub 1080, 30 frames per second compromise, if you know that there's something, like, infinitely better on the next machine? Is that something that's going to drive people to it? Like, will it garner that much attention? I don't know if it would. I know that game has its fans, and I have a strong suspicion that most of those fans own this new version already. So I'm just curious as to what the reason would be to even bother backwards engineering it if Bluepoint could just move forward, and just make the next thing that they're working on.
Sure.
A lot has to do with whether or not this is a new thing that popped up or whether or not this is an old thing that was found. Because I do think if it was an old thing that was found, I think it's largely possible that this, like you said, was just planned for PS4 originally and just made, the scope was brought up extra high for next gen, and they just found it. Or, there's a lot of... I'll say I don't think this is coming to PS4. Like, I don't think so. I don't think it's worth anybody's I don't think it's worth anybody's time to do that, But, I could be wrong.
There's one piece of interesting evidence, I think, that suggests that this is happening. In addition, the original Demon Souls, or one of the original Demon Souls trailers, you might remember, was deleted because there was a stinger on it that said PlayStation exclusive for PS5, not available on other consoles for a limited time, also coming to PC. And then they removed that at the end. This was before PS5 even came out. So I do think this game's coming to PS4. And I think that if this happens... I mean, at that point, you have nothing of consequence except for Ratchet and Clank now. That's exclusive to the console. So whether or not that matters or not, I'm just kind of... I'm trying to take the opposite, or the tact in reverse. Everyone's like, it's so easy. Well, it's got to be... If it's just that easy, then okay, there you go. You were right. And by the way, can't ignore those 120 million PS4s, right, guys? They'd be stupid to do that. So I'm just take your medicine, nerds.
Yeah.
All right. Real Radic wrote into us on Patreon, says, "Hey CDC, with Demon Souls being rated for PS4, it wasn't rated for PS4. So let's be very clear about that. Is it possible that all the other PS5 exclusives we have right now, Returnal, Destruction All-Stars, and Ratchet, will be ported to PS4, leaving Astro as the only true PS5 exclusive we have?" I am of the mind that Destruction All-Stars clearly can work on PS4.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would even bother, although that is a second-party game they published, so maybe they want to make some money out of it. I'm actually pretty convinced Returnal could work, too. I just think that they have to bump the resolutions down, and it's just not going to load very well. But it's what I said earlier, because I see Dustin shaking his head a little bit. I'm just going to note that they said the same fucking thing about Resogun, and then they brought it backwards anyway. They said it to my face multiple times. We cannot make this game work. on PS3. The voxels will not let us work. The frame rates will not let us work. The resolution will not let it work. And then it came to Vita, which is even weaker than PS3. So I'm not even into any of the like, well, it doesn't seem like, a lot of things don't seem possible, and yet they happen. So what do you think?
I don't think, specifically in the case of Returnal, mainly in the fact that it's already running. I can't speak on a total authority because I don't know. I'm pretty sure that it's running at like a 1080p that they then upscale. And in addition, I don't know about you, Colin. I was having some major frame rate chugging.
On Returnal?
In Returnal. Yeah. Specifically in Biome 4 with the rain. Man, it was bad at some point. So like this game, I feel like, I don't want to say it barely runs on PS5, but it's not like Resogun, which ran at like, a really solid frame rate. And then like, I just don't know. I'm trying to imagine how this would run on base PS4, like 720p with a variable 30, just because of how inconsistent it currently is on PS5. Like maybe, which the question is that due to, I don't think that's at the fault of the performance of the PS5. I think that that's a coding thing. Like, I'm not trying to shit on Housemarque and their abilities, because clearly they have done an amazing job optimizing games, but Returnal is not there yet.
Yeah. I think Returnal is one of those things that you could probably get it running on PS4 if you really threw in a lot of loading screens and maybe like you said with Biome 4 with all the rain, maybe like get rid of the rain entirely, like turn on, like turn particle effects off and all this other stuff, which is weird. That's the one thing. It's like that whole game is almost particle effects, Right. Like it almost the particle effects of Returnal are almost central to the experience. I would almost argue. So like whether it would be worth it to tone all that down to get it to work on a PS4 in a very, very compromised state, I'm not sure. I'm sure they could do it. I just think it would impact the overall feeling of what the game actually is and what it's trying to be, more so than Demon's Souls would be impacted by a lack of like high resolution or like a lower frame rate. I think it's just it has more to do with the identity of Returnal. So I think that's the one thing that would prevent that from running on PS4, especially base. Like that's the thing that these people have to consider as well. Like if they're bringing things back, you're not thinking about PS4 Pro. You're not, mm-hmm. That's your target. But if it's on PS4 Pro, that means a person with a base PS4 can download and play it. And there's no way Returnal's running at anything more than like 5 to 10 frames a second on a base PS4. Like it's the base PS4 is hilarious as a machine now.
We'll hear more about that in a little while as well.
Yeah. But Ratchet, I think. I think Ratchet is the one that I can't see working.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The more I play it, the more I'm like, I think they overstated how impressive it is, but it still just doesn't seem like it would work. There are boss fights and stuff that just wouldn't even work. So I'm somewhat convinced about that, but can you blame people for being skeptical now? In fact,
no.
Ben Black wrote into us just about this. He says on Patreon, says, "Hey, baby boys, first time, long time. Welcome, Ben. Colin, I've been a fan since the Beyond days and couldn't be more pleased with your current success with The Last Stand. Thank you. I wanted to comment on the news that there is potentially a PS4 version of Demon's Souls remake. Up until now, I've been ambivalent about the lack of a true PS5 exclusive because I bought a PS5 under the pretense that Demon's Souls remake would be only, he says DSR, I've never seen that before, would only be playable on the next gen console. It would feel like a bit of a kick in the nuts if it released on PS4, as then I would truly have no reason to own the PS5. Thanks for all the great content and please continue to treat that chicken with respect." I mean, I agree with you, Ben. If you're a PlayStation fan, if you're plugged in, why wouldn't you be skeptical right now? They're bringing games between the consoles. And so any other game that's been purported to be a PS5 exclusive, you should look at it and be skeptical. And the only reason I'm more skeptical about Returnal, I take your guys' point, and it seems like it would be a lot of work, but I was just there when they said the same thing about Returnal to me. About Resogun, and it made me look like an asshole, actually, and an idiot, because I was like, I went on and on about how on Podcast Beyond at the time, they can never bring it over. They said, and then it fucking came, So that's why I'm skeptical. And to Ben's point, see, like, Destruction All-Stars, I think, can definitely be brought over. I just don't know if they even care to bring it over. But that's one thing. And Demon's Souls, let's get on the record right now. Dustin, is Demon's Souls coming to PlayStation 4?
No.
Chris?
I don't think so. Like, I just don't see the point.
I could go either way, though. You
Nope.
put me on the spot.
Yeah. It's a 50-50 for me, but like I'm leaning like 51-49 to like I don't think it's coming. But we'll see.
I'm 90-10 yes on Demon's Souls coming to PS4. I just feel like I don't think the game sold very well, first of all. And so I think that it's not Bluepoint's fault. They did a great job. It's critically acclaimed, but I think it's just they want to probably move it over. That old trailer that was deleted with the stinger was removed, clearly indicated that it was going to come to PlayStation 4 and the PC. And I think that they've been playing this game with everything. And
yeah,
if they're playing, let me put it this way. If they're playing this game with games that haven't even come out yet, so games that are theoretically more technologically advanced, broader, bigger, whatever, and those are coming to PS4, then there's no reason to think that Demon's Souls Remake isn't coming to PS4. That's my whole take on it. There's just no reason whatsoever to believe that. Whether or not it happens or not is another thing entirely, but I totally understand the skepticism, and I'm on the side of the skeptics.
Yeah. I think of all the games exclusive to PS5, I think it's the one that would work the easiest.
Yeah,
but,
I agree.
I don't know. I just think it'd be so dumb to do. But I mean, the industry is no stranger to dumb.
It would be stupid for them to leave 120 million PS4 consumers behind.
That is also true.
That's going to be my answer now every time that this happens, because that's what everyone's answer was. Is they like to protect corporations like they work there.
I know. It is accurate though. I mean, like if you got all those people, man, make your money. But like, I just think it's just like, I feel like every Demon's Souls fan bought it. Like I don't know even, because that was like the big thing for PS5. Like, dude, if there's a Demon's Souls fan who like understood that Demon's Souls Remake is coming to PS5, they're gonna get a PS5 for any, like they're gonna beat an old woman with a stick to get that thing. They'll get it. Those people have PS5s, I'm sure of it. So I feel like they got all the money that they could have possibly got out of it. But I don't work there, so
yeah, we'll find out.
No idea.
Let me lower this a little bit here. Coming a lot. That's a little better. Okay.
Ooh.
Number 2. There's an interesting piece of news wedged in a story out of Bloomberg Japan concerning the manufacture and release of displays. It appears Sony is planning to release the successor to PlayStation VR, which we call PSVR 2 on this show, in the holiday season of 2022. In its report about OLED screens used in virtual reality headsets, the writer notes that most VR manufacturers aren't interested in OLED for VR except Sony, which has apparently tapped fellow Japanese tech company Samsung to make the OLED. Actually, Samsung is Korean, isn't it? To make the OLED panels for PSVR 2. Reaffirming Sony's publicly touted 5+ million sold number for the original PSVR, launched in 2016, Sony, quote, is aiming to release a successor in the holiday period next year, end quote. It's worth noting that Sony has officially announced and acknowledged the second PlayStation VR, though it hasn't yet named it, dated it, or given us many details apart from its all-new controllers, and the fact that it won't use a camera. Now we have confirmation of its OLED display, we know who's making it, and we know when Sony is aiming to mass-market PSVR's successor. This sounds like a perfect time to get it out. Yeah. Big question, of course, is how much it's going to cost. Dustin, do you have any note on this? Does it pique your interest at all?
The only thing I'll say is that I'm pleased about it being an OLED instead of a traditional LCD, just because OLED's the big thing, the true infinity contrast. So the blacks are totally blacked out in the fact that if you have an LCD screen and you've got text on your screen, there's going to be bloom around it because it has to light up all the pixels behind it, whereas OLED is individual. So it makes a big difference, especially when a screen is 1 inch from your eyeballs. So to see a lot of other VR manufacturers move away, particularly like Oculus, is disappointing. That's a downgrade. But so to see Sony stick with OLED, I think that's the right call for the better experience.
Chris, what are you looking forward to this? I mean, what do you make of the timing?
Yeah, no, I think it's good timing. I think this is awesome, and I agree with Dustin. I think OLED's perfect, especially for VR, because one of the biggest things about OLED is that like they're kind of notorious for not working all that well in like bright, like if you have like windows, like light coming in, it's kind of like it kind of interferes with the fact that like it's very, I don't even know how to describe like the way that it interferes, but it just does in ways that it doesn't interfere with normal LED or LCD screens. So a VR usage of it makes total sense because the screen is in complete dark around your face. So you're going to get like the best possible picture out of that you could possibly get. And it's just like, that is really smart for VR. And this is great. This is all good news as far as I'm concerned, you know?
Well, we'll see. We don't have much more to say about it. They've acknowledged it. We know it exists, so that's cool enough. Now this news comes out of Bloomberg Japan about timing, so we can look forward to that in the holiday of 2022. It also puts our minds in the context of what that holiday season might look like in terms of game releases and what they might emphasize at that time, and maybe even what first and second party games will be running on the machine at that time. It wouldn't be surprising to see the likes of Pixel Opus pop back up at that point, and maybe a couple of other smaller teams in the first and second party, and maybe we get a game like, I don't know, man. I mean, can you get God of War in the goggles? Can you get Horizon in the goggles? I don't know. I don't even know if people want to play it that way. But maybe I do think they need to do that more if they want to make PSVR a thing, like a real thing.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure Insomniac will have something also.
Right.
Like
they have a lot of
experience in some
experience.
capacity.
That's true.
Yeah.
They were with Oculus for a while. It's a good point. All right, number 3. Can't believe it's happening. If you've been looking to play Cyberpunk 2077 on PlayStation 4 and failed to acquire a physical copy or buy a digital version in the few days it was available, there's good news. Sony has cleared it to return to the PlayStation Store. Word comes by way of a regulatory announcement from publisher/developer CD Projekt, and it says that the company, quote, hereby publicly discloses the decision by Sony Interactive Entertainment to reinstate the availability of the digital edition of Cyberpunk 2077 on PlayStation Store effective on June 21st, end quote. So if you're listening on free feeds, the game is now available for you to play. However, you shouldn't jump in headfirst, particularly if you're playing on a base or slim PlayStation 4. A statement from Sony regarding the re-release of the game is relayed by Eurogamer candidly says in part, quote, users will continue to experience performance issues with the PS4 edition while CD Projekt Red continues to improve stability across all platforms. SIE recommends playing the title on PS4 Pro or PS5 for the best experience, end quote. Cyberpunk 2077 launched in late 2020 and based on an 80s paper and pencil RPG was stripped from PlayStation 4 not even a week after release due to notoriously poor performance. By the time it returns, it would have been unavailable to buy for 6 months on the platform. It's worth noting that a native PlayStation 5 iteration is still apparently en route this year. CD Projekt, the Polish team best known for its pioneering work on 2015's The Witcher 3, is largely seen as falling from grace following the launch of this game, though it still surpassed 13 million copies sold. What do you make of this, Dustin? Cyberpunk is triumphantly returning, and yet you're a gamer smart enough to get a comment from Sony that you should stay away from this thing. Still, that's what it says to me. It says
right.
Like we don't really have a way to keep this off anymore, but maybe you should not play it. What do you think?
That's I kind of feel like if they have to make a distinction, then maybe they shouldn't put it back on yet, because they made a big. This is ancient history now, but before PS4 Pro came out, they made a big deal about there being no PS4 Pro exclusive games. The games would be able to run on base and regular. So what they're doing now is kind of like this half step, like, well, we're gonna let people buy it even though they shouldn't play it. That just doesn't seem like a good move for the consumer. Still, like, don't put it back on if it's not ready for those base consoles yet. And it may be a situation where CD Projekt Red has fucked this up so bad because really, ultimately, it never should have even been released for PS4 or
PC
base
only.
consoles.
PC only.
Yeah,
if they should have just done that,
right, and then waited for the next gen version or something. Right. So I don't know. I think this is a bad move, just because I feel bad for the person who's not in the know, who's not listening to this podcast or reading game sites, and they see this pop back on the store and they're like, oh, it's ready for my base PS4 now, and buys it. Are they going to put a big red flag, a warning if you're on a base PS4 and you go to try to buy it? Surely this will happen to somebody.
No, a lot of people, I assume.
I just think that sucks.
I do too. I think, Chris, my contention here is that CD Projekt probably went to them at some point and were like, listen, like there are horrible games on PlayStation Network. Like, and it's true. I mean, that's the problem when you don't curate for quality and for stability of games. There are games on PS4 that have no business being on PlayStation 4. And so I think at some point you kind of have to be like, listen, this is crazy. You're kind of singling us out. And I think that that's actually a valid thing to say.
Yeah.
I'm personally, there's so much to play that I think I'll just wait for the PS5 native version at this point. Like what's even the point? And I don't really want to pay for this game. I'm kind of, CD Projekt's kind of disappointing. I feel like they knew exactly what was going on. I feel like they're liars, and they really made a lot of people look like fools by, not even me, because I don't give a shit about the game, but there's just a lot of people standing this game for years.
Yeah, and even just the way that they handled the review process, where they like very intentionally curated the version that would receive scores. They gave people like the best possible version, and it's a real shame, man. Like I can't think of a company that has ruined their reputation worse and so quickly. Like I really like even when 343 put out the Master Chief Collection in its completely bunked state, like even they managed to recover some goodwill. And I just don't see that even happening for CD Projekt for a very long time. Like this is like serious, like the damage they did. And I'm with you. Like I feel like this would have been so much better if they just kept it to next gen. Because honestly, like even playing, because I played on Xbox Series X, and it's by no means like next gen. Like it's not like the proper like it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but like it runs perfectly well enough, and I enjoyed my time with it. And I think they probably could have gotten away with it if they just had a PS5 version that like crashed a little bit. Like that sucks, but that's way better than like whatever the hell's going on base PS4, where there are like faceless polygonal ghosts walking around, and it's almost got like a Balan problem where like there's reverse draw distance in Cyberpunk 2077 on base PS4 and Xbox One sometimes.
Wasn't there I think they patched this out, but wasn't it erasing everything behind you that wasn't in the scene? Like it was doing something like that where to just remove everything from RAM, I guess, that was not being seen. So like you would turn back around and everything would be in different places. And the second you turn around, everything that's behind you is gone, which is, in fairness, how a lot of single player games do work. It's just that they keep the memory of what's behind you like loose in the cache, and then they like re-render it when you go back. But this one was just like, you've turned around, it's gone. It's completely gone. Don't worry about it. And like the police did weird things where they would just kind of like spawn out of nowhere. That was in the Series X version as well. But I don't know. It's a huge shame that they're even in this position. But they do have a point where it's like, yeah, there's fucking terrible games on PlayStation 4. I would assume that's got to be the argument at some point, right? Like, come on, man. Why are you guys singling us out? And I think that that's valid, but we got a letter in actually from Matthew Major. Matthew, your timing couldn't have been any worse, because he said, hey guys, just want to know why you're so upset about cross-generation play for new games. I have never heard you guys talk about the PlayStation Pro. It was the next console and everyone could still play on both consoles. I feel this is not a big deal. There is no need to get a PlayStation 5 for sure, but I think you are way too upset about it. There will definitely be console exclusives eventually. Thanks for everything. Matt, I know you wanted to write in about something else, but I had to just use your letter because your timing is so poor. Because, first of all, anyone who knew me at Kind of Funny knew that I bitched about PlayStation 4 Pro for like 2 years straight. But the second thing is that, and I did, and I was wrong about that, but I did. So maybe you're newer to the audience. But the second thing is that now, here you go.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not the only example. There are other games that you really should not play on PS4 that should be played on PS4 Pro. This is the only time I've ever seen Sony explicitly say it, though.
Yeah, totally.
Matthew, thank you for writing in, though. Sometimes you have to be that guy. Number 4, there's some sad news from Take-Two owned developer Rockstar that we have to relay. Grand Theft Auto 5, along with a couple of other games, are losing soon their support on PlayStation 3. This is relevant because GTA 5 is the conduit by which players access the ever-popular Grand Theft Auto Online via PS3. According to an announcement, GTA Online for PlayStation 3 will be taken offline on December 16th, and it will not affect single-player functionality. If you're curious, LA Noire and Max Payne 3 are also losing their online functionality on PS3, though it'll be happening much sooner in mid-September. Grand Theft Auto 5 first came to PlayStation 3 in September of 2013, right before PS4 launched. It natively came to PS4 the following year and is getting a PS5 port this year, and both will continue to be supported. Quirky detective game L.A. Noire came to PS3 back in 2011 via now-defunct Team Bondi, while Max Payne 3 came to PS3 in 2012. That was internally developed there. Nothing really to say here, Dustin, except for I'm curious how many people are still playing there. It must be enough that they warned them, which is good and very, let's say, un-EA, like when they just took the Need for Speed games down. I'm curious how many people you think play on this guy. I mean, just throw a number out there. How many people you think playing on PS3 right now? I would say the number is in the tens of thousands, probably. Something like that. Yeah,
I would think so. I mean, you have really people that have hand-me-down hardware or low income, whatever. They don't, but they have.
And in emerging markets, too, where, you know, it's just too expensive to get a new console. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And, you know, this is maybe what their grandma got them or whatever, and this is what they have. So a lot of times it's amazing just because I kind of wish I was not like in this, like, oh, I have a PS3, but some people also just don't care. They're like, I have a PS3, it plays the game, I like the way it plays. That's what they're looking for out of video games, and more power to them. But yeah, I'm guessing there's quite a few, so they're going to be hopefully they can find a cheap PS4 or Xbox One and upgrade.
Can you imagine just the sheer mind-boggling bewilderment that a person who was on PS3 and is just like, man, I guess I got to upgrade, and they go straight from there to PS5? That must be like astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because PS3 doesn't even function. I mean, if you we've said this many times on the show, 'cause I plug my PS3 to play something every once in a while, and it doesn't even work. It's horrible. I can't believe we actually used it. It's hard for me to believe that we actually used this thing.
It's crazy.
It's horrible. I love PlayStation 3, but when I went back and played like Mass Effect and BioShock Infinite and all that in recent months on PS3, oh my God, man. Like, you're sinking trophies. It takes minutes to sink your trophies. Minutes.
Yeah.
It's
I remember that
unbelievable.
back in the day.
Yeah. And now you just like, the trophy thing pops up on PS5, you hit the button, it immediately sinks it, and you just hit circle and get out. It's awesome. So you're right. The quantum leap would be something to behold for those folks.
Crazy.
All right, number 5. If you're a fan of Fatal Frame, there's good news. The newest game in the series is coming to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, though it's technically a port of an older title. Interestingly, the game was first shown at Nintendo's E3 press conference and was naturally assumed to possibly be Switch exclusive, as was the original game, though publisher Koei Tecmo later confirmed the PS4 and PS5 ports. The game is called Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater, a port of the 2014 Wii U game, and it's coming later this year. The Fatal Frame horror series goes all the way back to 2001, when the original came to PS2 in Japan, coming west the following year. A pair of sequels found their way to PS2 in 2003 and 2005. A Wii exclusive iteration released only in Japan in 2008, followed by a 3DS spin-off in 2012. Fatal Frame is a horror series wherein players utilize a camera as their primary means of interfacing with the world. This will be the first Fatal Frame release since Blackwater came to Wii U in 2014. I thought this was interesting, Dustin, because I don't really... I mean, I've messed around with Fatal Frame, but I do like a game, as I've said many times, that allows you to non-violently interface with your environment. And that's why I really liked about Outlast, when you played with the camera. You use the light on the camera to see or whatever. Right. It was so cool. And you're just running away because it's too much. And I think that's really neat. So does that entice you at all?
This game did entice me when I saw it in the Nintendo Direct, because I don't know much about this franchise, and it just is like creepy Japanese horror. I did not realize, though, I'm looking at their Wikipedia right now, Metacritic score of 67.
On Wii U.
On Wii U. GameSpot, 5 out of 10. IGN, 7 out of 10. Even Famitsu gave it a 33 out of 40. So,
and that's like horrible for Famitsu.
Right. So I'm kind of like, why? Maybe I don't know what those criticisms are. I'm just, looking at a surface level. Maybe there's major technical issues or something, but it just seems like, you kind of had a stinker and now you're re-releasing it again. So it just seems like, why wouldn't they just make a new Fatal Frame? Or I don't know. Maybe there's demand for this. It just, something about it seems, that's odd to me that you would re-release a a game like that.
Yeah. It's very like I like Fatal Frame a lot. Like I haven't kept up with the series or anything, but like there was one Fatal Frame game that I wish I knew what it was. It was like a PS1 a PS2 classic, I think, or like when you could play those on PS3. And I played that. I don't remember if it was 2 or 1 or whatever, but like whatever that one was really good. It's a very particular kind of horror game, you know? Like Fatal Frame is very weird. It's very Japanese. But not in like not in a way that was enough to deter me. So it was just, I guess, the right amount of Japanese. But it is curious that they chose this one, given that, you know, it's not the best, apparently. Very bizarre.
Number 6. Last week, we hypothesized that Psychonauts 2, shown prominently during Xbox's E3 press conference, would come to PlayStation 4. This week, we can confirm the news. Psychonauts 2 is due out on PlayStation 4 on August 25th, the same date it comes to Xbox platforms. It's worth noting, if you own both, that it'll be free on Game Pass, so you're probably going to want to play it there. Now, the reason this was called into question at all is because Microsoft owns Double Fine Studios, or Double Fine Productions, the team making the game, and they have for the last 2 years. Psychonauts 2 production far predates the sale of the team to Microsoft, however. You'll recall that the game was crowdfunded way back in 2016. I actually think they used the that website Fig, remember, to do it? Which gives you a little, that was like, frankly, my idea a long time ago, which was like to let people donate and get equity in the game, which they did. As the name suggests, it's a sequel to the popular PlayStation 2 Majesco published game Psychonauts, which launched in 2005. However, there will be no native next-gen version for the PlayStation. While it's coming to Xbox Series X and S, it isn't coming to PlayStation 5, though you can naturally play it via backwards compatibility. Chris, are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, no, totally. I love Psychonauts. I will say, like, I'm playing through the older one now. I just started it, so like I've barely gotten into it, and it's like the world and like the characterization and just like the art of that game does so much of the heavy lifting. And with like modern hardware, I just assume that the combat's going to be like a lot better than it already was, and like the art is looking good, and like I'm really excited for whatever this turns out to be. Psychonauts is just cool, and it's I didn't think we would ever get a second one. And the fact that it's imminent is really satisfying.
Excellent. You know? Very well said. Dustin, are you going to check it out?
Probably not, unless the like reviews are out of this world. I haven't played the first one. Oh yeah. I haven't played the first one, and while I agree with Chris, this is a reoccurring theme that Chris and I talk about: art direction and art style. I kind of find the art direction a little off-putting, though it is unique, and I'll give it that. That's just a personal taste that I don't. Kind of reminds me of like some like Nickelodeon like Real Monsters or something.
It's very Invader Zim.
Yeah,
and like it's very much that style, which I love that style. But yeah, right. it's definitely not off-putting.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I have Game Pass. I have a Series X. So who knows? Maybe I'll be feeling saucy and I'll check it out. We'll see.
Yeah, free on Game Pass. I mean, that's obviously going to be very appealing. Number 7, beleaguered developer Bioware has a new leader. Word comes by way of a post on the studio's official website, which announces that Gary Mccay is officially taking over as the studio's general manager, following a stint as the interim GM. Mccay was originally with Electronic Arts in the late 90s through the early 2010s and has an operations background. Indeed, he was GM of a couple of other smaller studios after leaving EA and returned in an operations capacity in 2020. The reality is Bioware, once EA's crown jewel studio, needs saving, and it seems Mccay might understand that. He said in part, quote, "We're laser focused on releasing the type of games Bioware has built a reputation on. High quality console, PC, and online RPG games with rich stories, unforgettable characters, and vast worlds," end quote. He likewise confirms that the next entries in both the Mass Effect and Dragon Age franchises are still en route, and the small constellation of studios, of course, also launched Mass Effect Legendary Edition very recently. Founded in 1995, BioWare was purchased by Electronic Arts in 2007 at the tail end of the original Mass Effect's development cycle. Its most famous older games are undoubtedly 1998's Baldur's Gate, 2002's Neverwinter Nights, 2003's KOTOR, and 2005's Jade Empire, though it was 2007's Mass Effect that launched the studio into true stardom. Mass Effect followed in 2010, that's 2 and 3 in 2012, while Dragon Age began in 2009 and continued in 2011 and 2014. BioWare's two latest games, 2017's Mass Effect Andromeda and 2019's Anthem, were both considered critical and commercial failures, particularly the online shooter Anthem. Chris, I thought that I was looking up this guy, and it's hard to find very much about him. He has just a bunch of like executive credits on Disney games and old EA games and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but he's an operations guy, so he's not a creative guy. That's why I noted it. He has no creative background at all, but it seems like he has a lot of success here, and it seems like maybe what they need is an operations person that can help produce their games and get out of their way, and kind of tailor them. Well, not tailor, but herd them in the direction which he says we want to make the games we're known for. And I think that's a great sign. So what do you think about this acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's hard to get excited about like somebody who's not, it's not anybody in a creative capacity. You don't really know what this will really amount to in the long run. But it does seem like BioWare could benefit greatly from just having like better management and just a better way to operate than they clearly have. Like even just deciding to do this Anthem Next thing was just so obviously dumb, like immediately. Like I mean, I was saying that, I was sounding the bell off for that for like the entire time. So to have somebody there who might already know that before they sink a bunch of money and time into something like that might be a good thing. It's just kind of hard to get excited about some guy who like worked at Disney and is just an operations guy, but this is probably a good thing. I wonder, I was thinking about, because you wrote here that like, BioWare was EA's crown jewel. What is EA's crown jewel now? Do you think I would
DICE, maybe?
guess like Respawn, right?
Oh yeah, Respawn. That's definitely the right answer. I was going to say DICE, but yeah, Respawn definitely. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah,
that's a good
well, I would have said DICE if not for Battlefield 5. And it could be again with 2042. We don't know. Although like the lack of campaign is like a pretty big deal. But
I mean, here are your options. You have the various BioWare offices. You have Codemasters, which is pretty big. You have I forgot they own them now. You have Criterion. You have all the DICE ones, and then you have like Maxis still exists. Motive exists. PopCap, Respawn.
It must be.
It's got to be. It's got to be Respawn. PopCap was awesome,
especially with Apex. And Fallen Order and like Titanfall 2 being like a beloved fucking game, even if it didn't sell well. It's got like, that's their crown jewel now. If they can get BioWare to the point where they're like the crown jewel again, that's super impressive. And I'll give this guy all the credit in the world. But as of right now, it's too early to tell what this is going to mean, if it'll make that much of a difference. We know a lot of the key BioWare staff is kind of gone at this point. So even if they did manage to get things back into a great state, it would still be a very different BioWare in the same way that current Bungie is great, but it's definitely not 2007 bullet in Microsoft's hand cannon Bungie. It's a very different studio that you're dealing with.
That's what I was gonna say, Chris, is that, and this happens with a lot of studios and beyond game development, like a band or whatever. Like there's a Ship of Theseus situation where it's like, if you interchange all the parts of something, is it really the same thing anymore? So it's like, I don't know. It's especially difficult for BioWare. It's like your main team, your main heads are gone, and there's new people. So it's like they want to revert back to who they were, but those people aren't there anymore. So it's complicated.
Yeah, it's this way with anything. It's like even if you can get like some people back, it's never going to be the same thing. It's like these people trying to, it's like, hey, G4's back, and it's like, is it?
Yeah, I mean, who cares? It's like that's you got to move on, and also recall that people like Casey Hudson came back and left. So it's not like it's not like they have a lot of stability. Obviously, Drew Karpyshyn is long gone. He went to, I think, work with Wizards of the Coast now. I mean, he was their writer, so it's. In some way, I don't even understand what BioWare is anymore, but I think EA knows that they cannot shut down another team, and they can't shut down BioWare, because I was looking at their defunct studios. It's like, man, there are a lot of teams on here, from Pandemic and Origin Systems to Visceral and Westwood and Danger Close and Bullfrog. I mean, so I think that they know that they can't, and they have to say BioWare, but I would have been much more interested for them to just kind of reform some studios, keep your space in Edmonton, keep your space in Austin, but like untether these guys from BioWare. It's not the same. And actually, you know what it reminds me a lot of? It reminds me of Rare under Microsoft. Like, it took them a long time to figure out what they were. They're not Nintendo Rare anymore. And it took them time to figure that out. So it just reminds me a little bit of that, and we'll see how this one goes.
Maybe the hope is though that they will figure it out,
Yeah.
like Rare did. Like Rare, like it's actually a huge. It's actually astounding that Rare managed to make something like really awesome. Like given, exactly what you're talking about, just like the identity crisis and just like the fact that it's like, oh, it's not Nintendo's Rare anymore. It's like maybe they're hoping that like, oh, maybe this new Bioware can find out what this Bioware is, but they clearly haven't yet. And whatever this Bioware is that put out Anthem almost twice.
Yeah, that's true. Anthem was gonna get a No Man's Sky thing, and I think they wisely walked away from that.
Do you remember, Dustin, when they had that update and they were like, "This is what the character customization screen looks like," and it was like just it's just Destiny, exactly. Yeah. Oh man, dude.
We'll see. We'll see what happens here. I like an operations guy being at the head of a studio that has many branches, and
yeah.
If you're going to tie them to Mass Effect and Dragon Age and just let them make those games, and God Almighty, just keep it all in order. I want BioWare to revive itself, but I just don't know if expectations are too high. I don't even know what the next Mass Effect could possibly be. This is the thing, is that Andromeda was supposed to be the next thing. They almost have to go back and retcon Andromeda out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole problem.
I almost feel like I know you have a problem with this typically, Colin, where like you have like a studio meant to make a specific game, like 343 with Halo and the Coalition with Gears. But like, part of me wonders, is like, dude, there's a lot of turnover from studios whenever they switch to a new project because the people don't want to make that. Like, I joined Bungie to make Halo, and what are we doing? We're making an MMO. What the fuck is this? I'm gonna go to id Infinity Ward or whatever the hell, or I'm gonna go to id. So like, part of me wonders, like, dude, if they're gonna make another Mass Effect, maybe just make a team for Mass Effect and have people who want to work on Mass Effect, who are excited to do it, instead of people who feel like they have to do it because they're BioWare. Like, that to me has always been like an interesting kind of like thing about that style of studio, where it's like, dude, what is the next Mass Effect even going to be with this new BioWare team that is clearly just doing it because they feel like they need to, especially now after Anthem and Andromeda just did so poorly. I don't know. This is just weird. I think you're right though. Like this having an operations guy at the helm is probably like the best thing for them. It's just going to be a number of years before we even see the effects of this.
I agree. So. They got to be patient. And Dustin, what do you think they're going to do about Mass Effect? I don't know if. Can I spoil Mass Effect 3? I guess I shouldn't.
No. There's too many people playing it right now.
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't, but they got to do. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, I don't know what the fuck they're going to do. Because Andromeda was literally the only way it could even conceivably continue. That's the whole thing. Like, so I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, here's what we can. I think the best way to put it is that there's multiple endings for Mass Effect 3. And so what they're going to have to do is go and choose one and then continue it from there, which people fucking hate it when companies do that. Is that they'll make a multi-tiered ending and then say it's over, and then when they want to make a sequel, they have to pick one that's canon. Then
Infamous had to do that.
Dude, and then it completely invalidates anyone who went with the other ending, because then it just feels like fan fiction. So that's probably what they'll do. It sucks.
I think Infamous's good ending was the canon ending. So yeah, it is weird when that happens. You're right. Well, we'll see. Keep an eye on that. A couple more quick ones here. Number 8, River City Girls, the amazing 2019 brawler that I loved, one of my favorite games that year, is getting a sequel. Word comes by way of website VentureBeat, which reveals that developer/publisher WayForward is working on River City Girls 2, which will be coming to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 at an undetermined point in the future. WayForward will be acting as developer, while Japanese publisher/developer Arc System Works, best known for its fighting games BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, will again be acting as publisher. Arc System Works, of course, owns the storied Kunio-kun IP from which River City Girls spawned. The series goes back to 1986 in Japan. The first game to come to the West from the franchise was River City Ransom in 1990. Founded in the early 90s and responsible for largely licensed fare, WayForward has nonetheless taken stabs at entries in Konami's Contra franchise, David Crane's Boy and His Blob, Blood Rain, Double Dragon, Drawn to Death, Transformers, Adventure Time, TMNT, DuckTales, and more. Kunio-kun is simply its next stab at a great old school game. River City Girls is awesome. And I must say that I'm ignorant, because Kunio-kun, we've not played. Most of those games have not even been released here. They just released a bunch of them, actually, you might recall, on PS4. But the female protagonists in River City Girls were actually introduced in a game in the 90s, and I didn't know that. I loved that they were like, I don't know if did you guys play River City Girls at all? Did you, Dustin?
I played a tiny bit. It was one of those ones I checked out on Game Pass briefly.
Nice. Chris, did you play
available.
No, I haven't touched a single River City game. I've seen them and they look cool. I just never I just never got around to playing them.
It's a brawler. It's very pretty. It's just, this is a funny game because the girls are going after their boyfriends who are like too effeminate and weak to like fight for themselves, and so like they're the ones beating the shit out of everyone so that they can go like rescue them. And it's super funny and it's super cute, and highly recommend that game. They're also making a Kunio-kun game that's apparently exclusive to Switch as well, so that's not in here. But nonetheless, number 9. This is interesting. 2 WayForward pieces. Speaking of WayForward, I love WayForward. All 5 gorgeous entries in its Shantae action platformer series are coming to PlayStation 5. Word comes my way of website Push Square. While undated, here's what we know. All 5 games are getting native ports going all the way back to the 2002 original, which you may remember was a Game Boy Color title. It was ported to Switch earlier this year and is en route to PS5. So too are its 4 well-regarded sequels. 2010's Risky's Revenge, 2014's Pirate's Curse, 2016's Half Genie Hero, and 2019's Seven Sirens. Risky's Revenge was a DSi exclusive. Remember DSi? I bought that the day it came out. Though ported to PS4 in 2015, Pirate's Curse was first on 3DS and later brought to PS4 in 2016. Half Genie Hero was bought to both PS4 and Vita at launch, while Seven Sirens came to PS4. Shantae has long been WayForward's most important franchise, as it typically did and still does contract work for others. I really like Shantae as well. I love that they revived this character and made her into something years after they released this random ass game for like Majesco.
Yeah.
And I my one thing about Shantae is that the animation's beautiful. If you see like how she like shakes her hips and stuff like that, like she's just so cute, and looking forward to that. So I wanted to give them a shout out.
It's a really well animated game from what I've seen.
Definitely.
Like it reminds me a lot of well, it almost sounds derogatory to say that it reminds me of like Flash, but like in a positive way. Like it's like weirdly nostalgic.
Yeah. So WayForward, people might not know this, probably don't. WayForward was founded by a guy named Mark Bozon. I'm sorry, Matt Bozon rather. And I worked with Mark Bozon, who was Nintendo GameCube's editor, if you guys remember, and Nintendo Wii's, or I'm sorry, IGN GameCube and IGN Wii's editor when I was at IGN. So there's an interesting connection there, and yeah, wishing them the best on that. And of course, our beloved Yacht Club Games is a spawn from WayForward. So
right,
yeah.
Number 10, rumors of a new Monkey Ball game have been percolating for weeks following some global games rating leaks. Now we can confirm that the game is real, though it's not really a game at all, but rather a compilation. It is indeed called Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, and as revealed on the official PlayStation blog, it's a collection of the first 3 Super Monkey Ball games. This is especially cool since the first 2 games from 2001 and 2003 were GameCube exclusives and have never been on PlayStation before. Published by Sega and developed by Sega-owned team Amusement Vision, the studio is actually best known for the GameCube exclusive Nintendo-published game F-Zero GX, which came out in 2003. Interestingly, Super Monkey Ball Deluxe was a PlayStation 2 game and was a combination of the first 2 titles, so it's unclear what's going on with the collection. Nonetheless, all 3 games will be available as a package on October 5th. I'm a little confused by this because I had Super Monkey Ball on GameCube, but I was under the notion that Super Monkey Ball Deluxe was just Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. So that's also in the package in addition to the original GameCube games. I don't really understand it. But are you guys Monkey Ball fans? Those games stress me the fuck out personally, but they are fun to play.
When I've played them, I've thought they were sweet, but I never had a GameCube growing up. But I did love, there was a marble game on 3...
Marble Blast Ultra?
Yes. And that game is fucking awesome. So I am very interested in Monkey Ball.
That is great. I want that.
Dude,
I never played Monkey Ball, but like I played a stupid amount of Marble Blast Ultra.
That team released a new game called Marble It Up that was pretty good.
What?
I think it's on PS4.
I might check it out. Marble Blast is great.
Yeah.
Number 11, the American-based NPD Group has released its monthly sales data for the United States, the world's biggest gaming market, for the month of May 2021. As usual, this data counts all physical and digital sales unless otherwise noted, and we will otherwise note Resident Evil Village was the best-selling game across all platforms for the month, with Sony-made baseball game MLB The Show 21 coming in second. Interestingly, the data doesn't account for any Xbox digital sales, thus rendering the number incomplete. Other notable games include Returnal at 7, Miles Morales at 11, Biomutant at 15, and Days Gone at 20, which snuck back into the list due to its PC release. When accounting only for PlayStation platforms, these were the best-selling 10 games of the month in order: Resident Evil Village, MLB The Show 21, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Returnal, Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11, Biomutant, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, It Takes Two, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This year's best-selling games so far are Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Resident Evil Village, and MLB The Show 21. Miles Morales is at 5, and Outriders is at 6. Spanning over the last 12 months into mid-last year, The Last of Us Part 2 is the 4th best-selling game, Miles Morales is 5th, and Ghost of Tsushima is 6th. So a lot of good PlayStation games there. By the way, I love that they've insisted on removing all digital sales from Xbox's, from MLB The Show from Xbox, therefore eliminating the argument, does it count Game Pass? Which I thought was pretty clever. So we know for sure that it doesn't. And finally, number 12 is the wrap-up, much shorter than last week's. The official PlayStation blog reports that Tetris Effect's connected co-op and multiplayer DLC is finally coming to both PS4 and PSVR in July. Website Push Square reports survival RPG Chernobylite comes to PS4 on July 28th. JRPG Astria Ascending comes to PS4 and PS5 on September 30th. Puzzle platformer A Tale of Paper, which came to PS4 in 2020, will be coming to PS5 sometime by the end of this year. So-called Dodgeball RPG Dodgeball Academia comes to PS4 by the end of the year. And action RPG Solstice comes to PS4 and PS5 sometime in 2022. The website also reports that old 3DO FMV Plumbers Don't Wear Ties and 2011 PSN side-scroller Blood Rain Betrayal, which I reviewed at IGN, are getting re-releases on PS4 and PS5 at unknown times. 2016 PS4 game Republique is getting an anniversary edition on both PS4 and PSVR at an unknown time. Same studio made Iron Man VR, in case you're curious. While 2017 THQ published PS4 RPG Elex is getting a sequel in the form of Elex 2, also at an unknown time. Push Square also reports that Sega's Yakuza RPG Judgment has surpassed 1 million units sold, while Arc System Works' new fighting game Guilty Gear Strive has surpassed 300,000 copies sold, and EA-published co-op game It Takes Two surpassed 2 million sold. Website Gamatsu reports that action-filled Orcs Must Die 3 comes to PS4 on July 23rd with a native PS5 launch by the end of the year. RPGs Fuga Melodies of Steel and Eldest Souls both come to PS4 and PS5 on July 29th. Strategy FPS Lemons Gate comes to PS4 and PS5 on August 3rd. Visual novel Heart of the Woods comes to PS4 and PS5 sometime this August. Story game Conway Disappearance at Dahlia View comes to PS4 and PS5 this fall. A remaster of the 2012 3DS game Rune Factory 4 called Rune Factory 4 Special. And fellow farming sim Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town, launched on Switch in 2019, are both coming to PS4 sometime this fall. Multiplayer game Raw Men comes to both PS4 and PS5 by the end of the year. And old school like RPG Sacrifier comes to both PS4 and PS5 in 2022. Publisher Capcom revealed that its multiplayer game Reverse, Resident Evil, comes to PS4 and PS5 in July, though we still don't have a firm date. And finally, the rumors and leaks were true. Prior Xbox Series X and S console exclusive The Medium is indeed coming to PlayStation 5 on September 3rd. A couple more things. A Plague Tale that have spawned since we even started recording. A Plague Tale Innocence is getting a PS5 version on July 6th, and there's rumors that it's going to be a PS Plus game that month. And Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are the cover athletes of Madden NFL 22, which will come to both PS4 and PS5 on August 20th. So that's all the news.
All right.
Boys, as we always do, let's end this episode with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from our audience over on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. We simply could not do this without you, and we thank you so much for your support there. Let's start with Greg Rygar, who, of course, was named after the classic NES game Rygar.
Whoa.
Hey, fellas, now that the E3 dust has settled, did PlayStation make the right decision by not attending? Feels like they could have delayed the Horizon gameplay to this event and had a larger presence in the conversation. However, they ran the risk of being overshadowed by strong showings from Microsoft and Nintendo. What are your thoughts? My personal take on this, Chris, is that I think Sony was right not to show up. I don't think that this E3 was so strong at all that they were overshadowed. In fact, I think it was so weak that a lot of people were wondering where they were in the first place. So, and kind of wishing that they were there. So what do you think? Do you think Sony should have showed up?
No. I don't think they really needed to, especially because, like, I feel like, look, if they had something to show that was of consequence, they probably would have shown it. I think, I think that Horizon gameplay was really the most the biggest splash that they could have hoped to have at E3, and they already did that. So like, what's the relevance as to whether or not it happens then or like a month earlier? It doesn't really matter all that much. And this E3 ultimately was like pretty weak. I thought Xbox did really well, and I thought Nintendo did really pretty well too. But everybody else dropped the ball in a way that I could have never even imagined in years. Like I still am reeling from the fact that Take-Two just aired a fucking Zoom call. Like that's real. Like that really and then like, what was oh my God, Randy Pitchford like harassing Kevin Hart, and what even is that? Like, so much of it was terrible. Even if like there were some bright spots, really bright spots for me, but ultimately I don't think it was necessary that they showed up. And I think honestly, if they did show up, it would have just been the Horizon gameplay that we saw and the Death Stranding thing, and probably nothing else of consequence. It probably would have been a weak showing for them as well. Like, I don't see what we would have gained by their presence,
Yeah, I agree. Dustin, I wonder what you think of this, because as I said earlier, I think kind of a little bit of Death Stranding, just kind of teasing something at Jeff Keighley's thing. And then we have this blue box kind of situation. We also saw Horizon a couple weeks ago. I feel like we missed them only because there was a vacuum for something interesting. I'm not saying that others didn't do well. I think Microsoft did extremely well, and I think Nintendo did pretty well too, but it did feel a little vacant, and yet I don't blame them for not showing up.
I hope that I don't know if Sean Layden designed the last PlayStation E3 conference, but I'm sure he had a big part of it. I hope that he's sitting back in a lazy boy, smoking a J, reading the comments about E3, remembering how everyone shit on Sony for doing a deep dive into a few games with a few announcements. And it's like, now look at the state of things, what some of these conferences have turned into, where there's nothing. Not completely, but some of them literally were nothing. Like, so yeah, I don't think they needed to be there. I think that they have so much cachet right now. All they got to do is put out a tweet and say, Thursday, show up, state of play, and they will have millions of eyes on them. Why do that at a time when attentions are divided? Keep it separate and keep your cachet.
Fair enough. Brock Smith wrote in and said, "Hola, gents. This question is geared for Colin mostly, but would love to hear all you give your own takes on the matter. I wanted to explore a more thorough analysis on how you'd reconcile your opinion during last week's episode about Resident Evil's cast not racially aligning with the traditional lore with one on 007. Oh, I'm sorry, with the conversation we had on 007 a few months back. In the instance of Wesker, you said you understood both arguments, but at the end of the day, it's an imaginary character, and you felt it was cool that they were changing things up. This is diametrically opposed to your opinion from a few months ago when discussing James Bond becoming a woman. During the discussion, you argued that if creators want to alter racial, ethnic, or gender identities that badly, you would rather see them just establish a brand new, awesome hero with their own storyline than messing with beloved pop culture heroes with long-established heritages. The only way I was able to reconcile this opposing view is that Bond is a slick playboy, a womanizer of sorts, and if he is now a she, it would suffice to reason core character traits would be reworked, making it the same hero in name only. To be fair, Brock, I think you're actually even giving it more thought than I did. Because that is a good answer, and I'm going to steal it. But I feel like there is a hypocrisy here in some way, no doubt. But I think, again, it's based on a scale. James Bond is one of the most iconic characters in the history of fiction. I mean, no one knows who Wesker is. No one. Outside of Resident Evil, you could say 007. What the Q score is? I think they still do that, where it's basically just how popular, how well known something is. And it's like a series of surveys they do every year, and things get Q scores. 007's Q score is probably like 100. There's no one in the world that doesn't know who James Bond is. So I think that would be my bigger argument, as opposed to Wesker. You can play around, but I'm generally of the mind, I mean, I have to be honest, I'm generally of the mind that if a character is a character, then you might want to just keep it as that character. But you're right, there is a little bit of a hypocrisy there. Dustin, do you feel like there's any difference between these two characters, or is it, because I feel like maybe we're getting a little too absolutist in the way we examine things, while saying like changing some characters is good and some characters isn't, and then maybe that's just the answer.
Yeah, which I think that we kind of came to a different conclusion on the Bond thing, where I was kind of like, if they want to make a a game version of James Bond that James Bond is, a female or whatever, I'm fine with that because it's a separate thing to me. Like it's their take. Same with Resident Evil. Now, I'm a little bit of a different opinion with the films where it's like if you then change, like if they were like Wesker in the Resident Evil games, the main timeline is now black. They just changed him. That would be weird to me. Like that, unless it's a reboot of the series, like changing an already established character from its source.
That would be jarring.
Right. That would be different. But Colin, I think that you made a very good point about the scale of Wesker. You know what I mean? Like my grandpa doesn't know who Wesker is, but but my everyone in my family knows who James Bond is. So that gives them more freedom.
I agree. Chris, what do you think? Because I'm generally of the mind, just maybe leave things alone and make new ideas, because then you just avoid the whole, like, is Captain America black? Or so, it's like, I don't know, man. Can't you just make another superhero and make him black?
Yeah, that was in superheroes. It's very specifically that too, because there's always like some variation of it. I think the way they handled Spider-Man was great. Like, because here's Miles Morales, who is a black Puerto Rican Spider-Man, but he's also not just Peter but Hispanic. It's his own character, and like he's got the spider powers and a little bit differently too. Like they managed to differentiate it enough that it feels like actually pretty great to have this character as an addition to this universe. And I think a lot of other properties don't really have an opportunity to do that. You can't really have two Weskers like kind of side by side. It wouldn't make sense in that world. So I don't know. I understand the point people are making, because actually when they released the cast for the Halo TV show that apparently Showtime or whatever the hell is doing, like I haven't been paying attention to it for a while, but they showed some of the cast, and there was like a white commanding officer, Captain Keyes, who is played by a black guy in the show. And I remember seeing that, I was thinking like, that's a little weird. That might be a little confusing if you're going into the show or you have any familiarity with the game and you're like, wait, oh, that's that? Okay, wait, okay, that's a little confusing. But aside from that, I'm usually of the mind that if an actor can do something well, just let the actor do it. Especially when it comes to live action adaptations of things, because you're not going to get somebody who looks exactly like Wesker from the game, or like even Lara Croft. You're not going to get somebody who looks exactly like Lara Croft who's also a great actor. Sometimes you have to just compromise. Like, all right, is this person going to play the character well? They might not look the part, but maybe they can pull it off somehow. And we'll see how that goes with Tom Holland. I think Tom Holland does not fit Nathan Drake at all, but hey,
we'll see it. We'll see. We'll go in and I'll have my arms crossed and be ready to be disappointed, and then we'll see what happens. But I totally agree with you, Chris. As long as we don't find out as long as Wesker doesn't walk in and say my preferred pronouns are he and him or something like that, then
like in the middle of like a fight.
Yeah. They're like,
look,
how could he do that? And then there's like a big 5-minute interstitial about how you're assuming that he's a man.
Yeah, I would say just there's a level of barrier. There's a barrier to live action casting that just needs to be understood, where it's like, look, you're not going to get a 1-to-1 fucking perfect look and sound to a character. So you might as well just get somebody who's really good at acting. And I think I'm a little biased maybe because I love Lance Reddick. I think he's hilarious and I think he's awesome. I think he's just a really good actor. He's awesome in that even just the small roles that he does in like John Wick and I don't know if you got around to seeing those Funny or Die videos, but my God. And he's great in Destiny as well. So like, I don't know. I just like him, and I would love to see him as Wesker in that. Although I doubt that's going to be good also. Like, let's be real. Like, my faith in that is very low.
Sure, as it should be. Then keep your expectations low. Generally, that's what I do in life. I'm not even trying to be facetious here. Keep your expectations in check. Then surprises are good and they make you feel nice, as opposed to just being disappointed over and over again. That's what I was trying to tell everyone with Bethesda earlier, right? Like, guys, like, enough already. It's over. Curse these metal heads wrote in. Says, hey, CCD. Colin, you said last week in a tweet that Xbox was taking up the mantle of next-gen only titles. But are they really when these games are coming to the Series S? I know the S is technically a next-gen console, but it's basically on par with the One X. So why is this different to Sony releasing games on PS4? Sorry if you already addressed this. I haven't had a chance to catch up on the last couple of pods. Love you all, and thank you for your work. Thank you for writing in. Chris, I'm a little perplexed by the S. I don't really know what to make of it. I don't even know how well it's... I'm curious what the breakout is, who's buying it, and how it's being handled.
I will say...
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I will say that like I have family with a lot of like young kids, and they have the S. Like everywhere that I've gone, it seems the S seems to be, because it makes sense. It's like the most affordable way to play next gen titles at a resolution that is still high enough to be good looking, but also, you know, not in keeping with a lot of like high end TVs, which most people don't even really have anyway. So like I think it has its place. I take issue with the idea that it's like it's on par with the One X. It's the Series S is, I'm fairly certain, unless I'm a complete idiot, I'm fairly certain the Series S runs with SSD.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that alone would indicate that it is not simply on par with the One X. You know, that is the main differentiator between these generations, is load times and the way that it streams data off of the SSD. Resolution, yeah, I get it. That's a big deal as well, but what is next gen really? Is next gen resolution or is next gen loading times? Like is what is more next gen about Ratchet and Clank? The fact that it looks beautiful, or the fact that it loads areas instantaneously, or that you can dimension hop at will, and the controller, like these things that have nothing to do with resolution. Like you could play something that is conceivably only possible on next gen hardware at like 720p, and it would still be a next gen title. It's just running at a lower resolution. So yeah, I would say that, yeah, maybe the 1440p, you know, hard cap on this Series S does limit it in some capacity. I wouldn't put it on par with the One X for obvious internal reasons.
Dustin, what do you make of this? I mean, I guess he's right in the sense that I don't really know what to make of the S. It might be a problem for Microsoft in the future, maybe a potential problem, a pain point, because they do have to aim towards this console, and
right.
that might be a problem for them. What do you think about Curse These Metalheads' thoughts here? What's the difference?
One of the key things is that the Series S only has a slightly slower CPU, which one of the biggest differences in this between last gen and this gen is that the CPU is way better. That's why there's so many 30 FPS games. Like the CPU on last gen sucked. So you're able to get more, like the GPU is the big differentiating factor between the Series S and the Series X. So, and then that's really where a lot of the scalability can come in. So I'm trying to think, what's his original question here is,
why is it different to Sony releasing games on PS4? I mean, I'm busting balls about one, and
for to me, it comes down to the CPU, like totally. Like I'm curious on how much the GPU will hold them back. But again, I think that a lot of it comes in also with like Xbox's SDK is much more designed. They make it super easy in their developer tools for you to design a game for Series X, and then it can do a lot of the legwork to downscale it for Series S in particular. So
well said.
Yeah.
Dan XL wrote in and said, hello, CDC. I was wondering if any of you have ever cried while playing a video game. I consider myself a hardcore gamer, having played hundreds of games in my life, but I just can't remember ever crying because of a game's story. I've certainly engaged with stories, and I've felt attached to characters before, but never enough to cry, I guess. What's funny is that I consider myself a crier when it comes to movies and shows. I think the problem for me is facial animations aren't quite there yet for me, and technical marvels like The Last of Us 2, and even the voice acting can be great. Maybe I'm just not 100% sold on the performances in these games and characters, and my brain has a hard time connecting on a deep level, whereas my brain can connect easily with real people. Is there something wrong with me? Can you all relate to what I'm saying? Games have made me cry a few times. I feel The Last of Us Part 2 is actually a really good example of a game that evoked such emotion in me at the end that I couldn't even believe it. But of course, the example I always use is Journey. That's the game that actually did make me cry. and I don't even really understand why.
Yeah.
Dustin, do you shed a tear or two when you play a game?
I'm not much of a crier when it comes to movies or TVs or whatever. And it's not that like I'm like, oh, crying's for pussies. Not like that. It's not like I don't care. There's no shame in it. I kind of wish that I could more. But the only 2 times I can think of is the end of Tetris Effect. I don't know what it is. That final song after, like, it's just like this like total sensory overload. And then I don't know what it is. I wasn't like crying, but I could feel like this welling in my eyes.
Yeah, like welling.
Guys, I'm willing to take the L on this. You can direct your tweets at me. When I booted up Kingdom Hearts 3, it was a little emotional. It was a little emotional. Not a big cry, but you got to remember, I remember getting Kingdom Hearts 2 in 2nd grade. And I was with my grandma, and she helped pay for part of it. And it was so... I know everything that you guys say is wrong, you're right about. You're 100% right.
It's fine. Like, that hurt my heart a little bit to hear you say that, but it's fine. Like, I forgive you.
But, and Kingdom Hearts 3 was kind of... It wasn't like a massive disappointment. It wasn't quite what we wanted it to be. But it was an important moment for me as a, in gaming. It was like so much had changed. I was married and living in my own house, and I was working in the games industry when I got to play Kingdom Hearts 3. And I remember being in 2nd grade and picking up at the mall. So maybe it was kind of more of a personal thing for me than even the game itself.
Sure. Chris, where are you at on this?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I've welled up at certain games, definitely. I don't know if crying, like I've never wept at a game, like, you know what I mean? But there's a handful, I'm sure some that I can't specifically remember, but the ones that I do remember was in BioShock Infinite. There's this, and I think I've talked about this before, but there's this one sequence that is totally missable, I think, in Vox Populi operated Columbia, where you can go to the cellar of this bar and there's a guitar there, and you can pick it up, and Booker starts playing it, and then Elizabeth starts singing, and there's this kid who's like starving, and he's like hiding in the cellar. He's like trying to steal some fruit before you came inside, and then she gives it to him, and she scampers off, and it's just like a really nice moment. And I welled up at that moment, and I remember thinking, like, I don't know why this is so potent to me, but for some reason it is.
I mean, that's Ken Levine, man.
Dude, man, I love those games.
Me
but
too.
It's that one, and a more direct one, more obvious one. As many problems as I have with the 4th Halo game, when, spoiler alert, when Cortana dies at the end, I welled up. I couldn't help it. That's like a character that I've known for like 10 years just dying. That's pretty sad. And I did well up. Even, I would dare say, a few tears, started strolling down. But it was pretty quick, and then I started killing my friends, and it was fine. I totally forgot about it. But yeah, it's a hand. I'm sure there's like a handful of other times where I've welled up at things that I can't really remember off the top of my head. But I wouldn't say that I'm all that. I would say I'm in agreement where it's like I'm more susceptible to this stuff in like film and like television for whatever reason, especially if it's like the end of like the last season of a show you've been watching for a long time is always like, for whatever reason, really, really sad and really emotional. And like there's some movies like, I for some reason welled up during Jojo Rabbit. I can't even explain to you why, but
and it happens. I mean, I'm an emotional person, and I love that kind of stuff. Getting hit and barraged with, I always say about how I love comedies that get really serious, because I think those are the ones that really actually get the most emotion for me by the left turns. I think The Wonder Years, the old sitcom from the late 80s and early 90s, is a great example of something that's just like really serious and then gets really funny. And so it keeps you on your toes. Thanks for writing in.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. Mighty Max wrote in and said, "What's up, gentlemen? After following E3 closely and watching as many trailers as I could, I find myself a bit disappointed. Where are the good JRPGs? Other than Tales of Arise, which is my most anticipated game of 2021, I find myself wondering if we'll ever see solid games of this beloved genre in the new generation of consoles. Breath of Fire and Wild Arms and Chrono Trigger, I want new games that give me experiences like those classics used to. I know that Sabotage Studio is working on Sea of Stars. It is. Those are the guys that did The Messenger. which is one of the best looking JRPGs I've seen in many years and my most anticipated game of 2022 so far, but I wish for more than what we have available now. My question to you boys is, do some of you also feel the JRPG void? Do you wish we had more coming out on the new gen consoles? And which old franchise would you like to see come back? So, Dustin, I'll go to you for this one, obviously. What do you make of this? My take is that less is more. And we have to remember that when Japanese role-playing games and JRPGs and Japanese games technically were at their lowest point in the industry is when we got the most of them. So I think getting away from the Dimension Neptunia, whatever kind of B-tier role-playing game and funneling more towards AAA experiences is the ideal.
Right. I feel like if we're loose with the term JRPG and we include action RPG, which is what Tales is, like, we got Nier Replicant, which was awesome. We have the new Final Fantasy DLC that just came out. Monster Hunter Stories 2, while it's a Switch game, that's an RPG. The new Neo, The World Ends With You is coming.
Scarlet Nexus is a Japanese role-playing game as well. That's imminent.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, Shin Megami Tensei 5, which is a Switch exclusive. That's the thing, is that a lot of some of these things you got to look outside the PlayStation ecosystem for, unfortunately. But I don't know. I feel like there's quite I don't feel a drought for it at all. I mean, we saw a trailer for Final Fantasy 16 in the past.
The nerve of Mighty Max to come here and say that we're not getting enough JRPGs, and here I am waiting for my stealth game, stealth game a decade to come out.
It's a good point.
Shame on you, Mighty Max.
Yeah, Mighty Max, you son of a bitch. Also, I mean, eventually we'll get to actually working on it full time, but we're going to make a role-playing game too. So it's going to be interesting, but I really feel like we got to be careful about what we ask for, because there was a time not so long ago when JRPGs were in the gutter, and that was because I think a lot of shit was coming out, and I'd rather them just take their time and do better, unique, fewer games. That's my whole thing. Mighty Max, thank you for writing in nonetheless. Ethan Cox ends us off. He says, "Hey, CDC, I've been listening for a while and finally decided to start supporting. And for my first question, I wanted to ask, which of the three of you would last the longest in a zombie apocalypse?" My honest answer is me, but I wonder, Dustin, what do you think? What is your reasoning?
Do you own any guns, Colin?
No comment.
I was going to say, I do own a gun, so I've got a little bit of an advantage there.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my weapons.
Okay, well, I'm willing to talk. I have a pistol, so I don't have a lot of ammo for it, and right. I'm not necessarily very, I'm not a sharpshooter or anything, but that at least is something. And I live in an area that everyone has guns here in Western PA. Even Grandma's got a gun. Little Johnny's got a gun. So
that means the zombies may have guns as well.
Where are the zombies?
Point.
Is there any zombie notion where they use weapons? Seriously, like that would be interesting. That would be like a new spin.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, I mean, in like 28 Days Later, when it's like infected, I think they use things. They use tools and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, because even in The Last of Us, like the different levels of infected, they don't ever like use an implement or anything like that.
Right.
That's I like your answer though, Dustin.
Weapons aren't everything. All it takes is, depending if they're fast zombies, they're gonna catch up to me very quickly. Like I'm just not a runner. So I don't know though. So it's a good question.
We'll go Cesar Romero, like slow, like Walking Dead type zombies. I think that's the safest bet.
The reason I'm skeptical about Chris's survival, if I might throw it over to him, is just because of where he is. I don't know if you're going to be back in New York by the time this all happens, but in LA, you're shit out of luck. I mean, you're done. So I just that's my biggest concern for you, is not your ability to survive, but rather your geography. I just don't know how it's going to work for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, if Left 4 Dead 2 has taught me anything, I've got plenty of weapons because I have so many guitars. So, I'm set for melee combat pretty well. But yeah, like would the harsh sun be to my benefit? Like would zombies decay faster in hot sun? Or versus if it's colder, would they actually be better off in colder climates because they would, theoretically decay slower? Like, who knows?
Yeah,
do they even decay in perpetuity at all?
We don't know the rules.
What is the science of a zombie?
We don't know the rules.
We don't know the rules. But tell you what, Ethan Cox, if you have a better if you can somehow find a way to map this out for us in a concise way, where we have a better idea of what exactly, because zombie apocalypse is too vague. Because that could mean any number. You could argue we already had one in the last year.
Sure.
So
T-virus.
What does this even mean?
Yeah.
So, I would need more information. But I think I'd be all right. I just find high ground, and wait for an earthquake to happen.
Yeah, go to the fault lines. I loved like driving by the fault lines. They're so eerie in the middle of California. Because it's just like, it looks like mountain ranges that just reach up and then fall.
It looks like a glitch.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's very beautiful. But yeah, Ethan, write into us again if you see this or hear this, and give us your rule set, and then we can better figure this out, because there are a lot of different facets to this question, and I want to make sure we answer it properly, because I have a lot of faith in Chris and I have a lot of faith in Dustin, but I think I just don't like Chris being in a population center. I just feel like it's too dangerous. It's just too much, It's like what we see in The Walking Dead when everyone's leaving Atlanta, because you assume and then they go back into Atlanta and everything's all fucked up. You don't want to be there. I'd rather be out here in the suburbs. Dustin's in even more rural area. So, all right, Ethan, thank you for writing in, and boys, thank you for your time today. That's all we have for Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
I think you know what? I think
you gonna eat?
I think I'm gonna get myself some Five Guys.
Oh, nice, love it, excellent.
Yeah,
Dustin.
On the topic
comments.
of food, I'm celebrating Father's Day tonight, so they want to go to Chili's, which I have not been to Chili's in probably 5 years. Maybe.
Awesome. Nice.
They used to have these chicken chipotle crispers when I was there. Literally, seriously, it's probably been 5 years since I've been to Chili's, and I'm hoping they still got them or something. But the Awesome Blossom,
I love
is that what it's called?
Blossom. Yeah, that's what I mean. I haven't been to Chili's in 20 years, maybe. So I don't even know if that exists anymore, but I assume it does.
Dude, I unironically really love Chili's.
I like it too. Just never. I used to go there in New England when I lived there, and then on Long Island we just didn't really have them. And then I went to Boston and I had no money, and then so on and so forth. And then there were like no Chili's around us in San Francisco, so it was just there was no way for me to go. I like those restaurants.
You and Chili's just missed each other entirely.
Two ships in the night,
constantly soulmates that just continuously passing ships. Indeed. But I love they used to make an amazing chocolate shake, like sincerely, like the best chocolate shake I've ever had anywhere, like, which is like a weird thing to say about like Chili's, but I don't know if they do it anymore. I think they outlawed it.
Here's the thing. We always think about game developers or publishers, whatever, listening to our show, or our audience. If you're working at Chili's right now, whether you're a server or you're in the dish area or you're at corporate, let us know. Shout out to Chili's. Unless it's terrible tonight, then I will call you out next week.
Sure. I don't think it's terrible. They're all about consistency.
Okay. I don't know.
I mean, that's the idea, isn't it? That you're supposed to be able to go from one to the next to the next.
True.
Yeah. Like,
right.
But yeah,
it's all microwaved. So
could be. Well, have fun.
Thank you.
Chili's baby back ribs. That was a whole annoying when everyone wanted to sing that. What was that? 15 years ago now.
On The Office.
Welcome to Chili's.
Dude, the Chili's presence in Office, that the ongoing joke of Chili's is very good.
Well, because it is very suburban corporate, where like that's where you go because there's no other option.
Right.
It's also the same thing with like, I'm gonna go to my favorite New York pizza place when he's in the city, and it's just fucking Sbarro.
Yeah, Micah does that to me to bother me, or she keeps bringing up how she wants to go to Long Island and ask my father if we can go to Sbarro, which I think my dad would just throw her into the Long Island Sound if she said that. So we have to be very careful. All right, boys. Well, I appreciate you guys and hope you're doing well. And I hope all of you guys out there and gals are doing well in the audience too. Thank you so much for your love, kindness, and support of our show. Oh, by the way, Dustin, we have to get you in the credits. People have been writing into this. You are not in the credits so I have to, I'm not going to do it yet, but when I record the new credits, which I do each month, I'll put a little, I'll put you in there as well. But thank you all for your kindness, for your support over E3, for your generosity on Patreon, for your reviews, for your nice tweets, all the rest. We really do appreciate it. Join us on Discord. We have a Reddit as well, subreddit, all sorts of options. But otherwise, I'll let you guys go. We'll see you next time. Thank you again. Goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is recorded from Central Virginia and Burbank, California, USA. The show was conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun Maldonado. Sacred Symbol's executive producer is Dustin Furman, and the show is edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer support level or higher on Patreon, and we're grateful for your kindness and generosity.